She was part of changing. Make some nice area.
Clint, we're gonna get going. Sorry.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. My name is Gary Hutman, and I am the Executive Director of MetroPlan Orlando. Before we get started, just some housekeeping items to announce, and you're probably well aware, but the restrooms are, if you exit the boardroom to the doors to my right, they're just down the hall. If you exit the door on my left, you can go into the break room, and there's water in the refrigerator, sodas if you're inclined. There's coffee out there. So feel free to help yourself with that. Probably the only thing that you'll need to know for this meeting regarding the Tadens in front of you is to speak and to turn on the mic is the red button in the middle of your screen that turns the microphone on and off. And when you make a comment, please turn it on. And when you're done commenting, turn it off. We get some feedback if we have more than 4 of them on at any one time. So I'm glad that you're all able to join us for this first workshop and got it on your calendars and that you've committed several hours to this project with us today. We have quite a bit to cover. I think the critical part of this morning's agenda will be hearing from each of the 3 counties, having any necessary discussion on what we hear, and hopefully coming to agreement on a conceptual alignment of the trail through each of the 3 counties. If we achieve that, and with the agreement of each of the counties to then add that, if you haven't already done so, to the relevant maps of your comprehensive plans, we'll be in a good place. MetroPlan is going to let the counties take the lead on amending your maps, and then we will do likewise. And we hope to do that on our map for MetroPlan board adoption at their December meeting later this year. If we can get all of that done, we will not need to meet, likely not need to have a second meeting next month. But if we get close to that agreement, but not quite there, we'll have a meeting, but likely it would be virtual. We'd be able to do it virtually. Dale, Clint, and I met with DOT on Monday of this week with the DOT chief planner, as well as the District 5 secretary happened to be in Tallahassee. So we scheduled a meeting around that. I believe it was a productive meeting, and Dale may want to comment on that in a few minutes. So now, before I turn this over to Dale, I'd like to go around the room and make some introductions for folks. We do have some folks online, and so that everybody knows who's participating in the meeting. So why don't we start, Cedric, with you, and then we'll work our way around. We'll work our way around the table, and then we'll go out to those sitting in the chairs in the audience. And then Lisa will also get an attendance from those online, and I'll just have you call out their names and they can acknowledge that they're present. So Cedric?
Okay, my name is Cedric Moffitt, Principal Planner at Orange County Parks and Recreation. I've been working with Dale here for the last almost a year now, kind of the concept here for Orange County. So we're glad to be involved here, and hope, see it, make it happen.
I'm Jason Hickson, Director of Parks and Public Lands.
Yeah, Jason, push the button, the red button in the middle of the screen on the bottom there.
There.
Sorry.
There you go.
There it is. Okay, thank you. So Jason Hickson, Director of Parks and Public Lands at Osceola County.
You gotta shut yours off. Trying to follow directions here. I'm Rick Durr, Director of Parks and Recreation for Seminole County.
Good morning, Daphne Green. I am the Senior Bike Ped Planner for the City of Orlando and the Micromobility Program Manager there.
Good morning, Brian Sanders. I'm the Transportation Planning Manager for Orange County.
Good morning, Robert Bell. I'm the Operations Manager for City of Sanford Parks and Recreation.
Tara McHugh, Executive Director, East Central Florida Regional Planning Council.
Patrick Panza, Operations Director, Bike Walk Central Florida.
Dale Allen, volunteer and advocate for the Lake to Lake Regional Trail.
Good morning. I'm Virginia Whittington, Director of Regional Partnerships here at Metro Plan Orlando.
Good morning. I'm Dave Tomac. I'm the Deputy County Manager for Osceola County.
Good morning, Lynette Matheny, Executive Director of Environment and Public Lands, Osceola County.
Good morning, Clint Beatty with Tavistock and Senior Vice President responsible for the development of the Sunbridge Master Plan community.
I'm Tammy Radke. I'm the Mobility and Special Projects Manager at the City of St. Cloud.
Good morning, Sarah Crom, Senior Transportation Planner with the Space Coast TPO.
And Karen, let's start with you in the audience.
She holds the power.
My name is Andrew Bray. I'm in Orange County's Environmental Protection Division, the Green Place Program.
Good morning. I'm Helen Morphy. I'm a community engagement consultant with Rockford Group, specializing in projects and programs that advance walkability and livability, and I am on the board of the Florida Community System.
I'm the Florida Community. I'll be happy to certify.
Oh, nice.
And we have joining us online, we have Mr. Ned Bayer and Miss Samantha Brown.
Yeah, hi, I'm Ned Byer. I'm Director of Planning for Volkert in the Southeast region and also President of the Florida Greenways and Trails Foundation.
Good morning. I'm Samantha Brown. I'm the Bureau Chief of the Office of Greenways and Trails here in Tallahassee.
Okay, thank you. We still have folks coming in, but for the sake of time, Dale, why don't you go ahead and
Tim? Yes. Want to start?
Yeah, go ahead and get started on the background.
Well, good morning, everybody, and thank you very much for coming to this first of what I hope will be a series of collaboration meetings about a proposed new regional ecotourism trail. I've had the pleasure of working on these trails now for quite a number of years. And as I was reflecting on this meeting, I got my start in Central Florida when I got a phone call from then Mayor Linda Chapin, who had this idea of putting back together again the fragmented railroad corridor that came to be known as the West Orange Trail. That has inspired me my entire professional career because I saw what could happen when everyone gets organized, when the leadership is supportive, and when you have a good project that the community embraces. And boy, have they embraced it. We were out in Winter Garden the other day, and the trail is just busy all the time, and it's well loved. Since then, there have been other regional trails. The West Orange Trail was the first trail leading to what became known as the Coast to Coast Trail, and that trail would not have been possible without the West Orange Trail. And it's Florida's first ever regional trail to connect both sides of Florida, and followed shortly thereafter by the St. Johns River to Sea Loop. So we're lucky to have this project in a part of Florida that already has a history of regional trail work. We have a very good working relationship with District 5 DOT on these regional trail projects, and I couldn't think of a better district of DOT to work with on a project of this magnitude. And so we're going to try something new. And this meeting is the beginning of that process. My wife Karen and I, who've had the pleasure in retirement of traveling around the country with our bikes and visiting many communities that have developed these regional trails, one of the first things we hear from people is, boy, this trail is popular. Our only regret is we didn't start sooner. And the second thing we hear from everybody is, boy, I wish we'd have gotten everybody together at the beginning to talk about it. Because what happens when you don't is one community has resources and their trail looks really good, and the next community doesn't have resources and their trail doesn't look as good. And the people who are learning to ride these trails are coming in from increasingly further away, and a regional trail that is going to compel somebody to ride all the way from Sanford to Lake Okeechobee is going to have to be well organized from beginning to end. And that takes a regional collaboration. So today we're going to be talking about not only what it takes to get these trails planned, designed, and built as fast as we possibly can, but what it takes to operate and manage these trails in perpetuity, because that's what we're going to have to do. When you do that, amazing things begin to happen. And if you're not familiar with the Great Allegheny Passage Trail, which was 20 years in the making, you can now ride your bicycle from Washington, D.C., all the way to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, to 450 miles, 100% all off-road. And the last year we have numbers for the Great Allegheny Passage in the summer months between April and November, 750,000 people made that journey. You can imagine what that did to the rural communities along the Monongahela River that historically had been steel towns, and the steel factories were closed up and the railroads were not operating anymore. These towns have been reborn, and they're back in business with a new clientele. So thank you. We're at the beginning of that journey today, and thank you for coming. I know this was a big ask to get you all together to do this, but it's the one thing we heard over and over again. Everybody needs to start together from the beginning. Otherwise, it doesn't hold together for long. So with that in mind, I'd like to welcome you all. And Elisa, if you could show the video. We've prepared a little video for an introduction here. A once-in-a-lifetime opportunity now exists to create a 150-mile multi-use trail that would allow residents and visitors to Florida a chance to explore a portion of the Florida Wildlife Corridor from the city of Sanford on Lake Monroe to Okeechobee City on Big Lake O. From the late 1800s to the 1930s, railroads were the dominant form of long-distance transportation in the United States, crisscrossing the country with tracks that could carry goods and passengers to destinations far and wide. In Florida, new railroads traversed the entire state, following the pathways used for thousands of years by wildlife and Native American tribes and then by early explorers. In eastern Florida, two historic railroads passed along this north-south route along the west side of the St. Johns River Basin, first linking the towns of DeLand and Geneva, and by the 1920s, expanding southward toward Lake Okeechobee, creating new communities such as Chuliota, Weewahuti, Kenansville, and Bassinger. These and other towns experienced boom years as the railroads gave access to new markets for timber, minerals, and agricultural products, and the increased opportunities brought workers and families to settle along the tracks. The Great Depression of the 1930s led to the failure of both railroads and a steep decline in the fortunes of the towns they served. Most of the rail corridor reverted to control of local and state governments, and by the 1950s, new paved roads ran through the areas, bypassing these small towns which depended on rail traffic to survive. During the 1970s, a new transportation and tourism concept took hold both in the United States and especially in Florida, as state and local government began acquiring hundreds of miles of old disused railroad corridors and converting these corridors to paved recreational trails, bringing new life to parts of the state left behind in the wake of the railroad closings. These Rails to Trails projects led to an explosion of outdoor activities for cyclists, hikers, and ecological tourism nationwide, bringing millions of visitors to towns and nature in a new and close-up way. In Florida, the legislature funded the Department of Transportation and created the Sun Trail System, a unique regional paved trail network that links hundreds of miles of some of the most traveled multi-use trails in the state. In 2023, the Florida legislature passed another bill that would connect the Sun Trail System to the Florida Wildlife Corridor, a vast expanse of public lands west of the St. Johns River Basin that encompasses these two unused rail corridors. The Lake to Lake Regional Trail would be a new addition to the statewide system of paved trails and would recreate this historic railroad corridor as a multi-use trail running from the city of Sanford to Okeechobee City. Once again, these historic 19th century railroad towns would be revitalized around a 21st century purpose, regional ecotourism. Given the vast protected landscapes of public land that surrounds this corridor, this unique opportunity would allow residents and visitors from around the world to explore the Florida Wildlife Corridor at their own speed and leisure. Efforts are now underway to enlist the support of the public and to encourage the 4 counties along the corridor to lead this conversation and to incorporate the Lake to Lake Regional Trail Corridor into their existing trail and transportation plans. MetroPlan, the regional MPO, has been approached to ask for their support, and plans are being put into place to create a regional trail alliance to provide operational support for the Lake to Lake Trail. The public benefit of Sun Trails has been extensively documented, and the Lake to Lake Regional Trail should offer similar opportunities and enhancements to communities along its path. The proposed Lake to Lake Regional Trail is a legacy from Florida's railroad past, as well as a unique opportunity for Florida's ecotourism future. To learn more about the Lake to Lake, please go to the website for the Florida Greenways and Trails Foundation and search for the Lake to Lake Story Map. Download the story map and begin your journey of discovery. That gives you an idea of the opportunity that we have in front of us. I would like to just also ask you to look at this graphic, and you are all provided with one. We were struggling for quite a while trying to figure out how to conceptualize for this discussion this very big project that we're about to take on, because it's not just transportation and it's not just trails, it's also the Florida Wildlife Corridor. And so this graphic was kind of a triangle to kind of look at those 3 topics and how they relate and affect each other. The conversation today is primarily going to be about the trail and trail continuity, but as time allows, we're also going to be focusing and talking about the Florida Wildlife Corridor, which is the real magnet that we've got here to draw people into this whole network and what their special needs are and how all these things inform and affect each other. All right, so we'll be coming back to this graphic. This is my first shot at a picture. I found it easy to sometimes to have things like this when I'm dealing with elected officials who don't have a lot of time. This kind of helps keep in mind the challenges that we're all going to face as we begin to put this together. So with that said, we have a couple of new people in the room. Gary, can I call on her? Tim, would you introduce yourself and just who you are and who you represent?
McKinney, CEO of United Global Outreach, and in Orange County, we've been working in East
Orange County out in the Bithlo community.
Thank you. Georgiana?
Good morning. Sorry for being late. Georgiana Gillette, Director of the Space Coast TPO.
And did anyone else join us? Anyone else in the audience? Okay. All right. Well, thank you. We're going to start today by, I'm going to call on Rick Duer from Seminole County. I actually owe a debt of gratitude for Rick. He's the first one who notified me that there was a railroad corps out here that could guide us through this long distance travel. So Rick, I'm entirely indebted for you. Would you go up to the platform, please? And Karen's watching the clock, so.
So please feel free to tap me on the shoulder if I start to run along, by the way. So thank you again for the record, Rick Duer, Director of Parks and Recreation for Seminole County. I've been with the county for about 13 plus years now. So I'll be referring to some things that predate me, but Dale, you brought up some pretty interesting and very important landmarks in this timeline of trails development, including in Seminole County, because right around the same time the West Orange Trail was being looked at is when Seminole started doing the same thing with a similar alignment. So in the spirit of being able to retrace our footsteps to see where we got to today, to better inform where we're going tomorrow, I'm going to give you a little bit of a brief overview of our trails program over about the last 30 years and how that developed. But in front of you right now is a pretty complicated map. This was the updated Trails Master Plan we had adopted by our BOCC in 2022. It's the first time we had updated our map in a very long time, and it really focused on what we called our signature trails, which I'll show you as part of the regional trail system. These are our dedicated multi-purpose paths that run through Seminole County, and we've been primarily focused on completing those over the last 25, 30 years, and then breaking those down into different connections that actually connected folks back into neighborhoods and established areas within the 7 cities of Seminole County. And that's really what this shows, is the full picture of all the trails and pedestrian activity that we have going into our capital improvements plan. So in that same regard, we are happy to be the recipient, or at least the route, of a number of the regional trail systems. Both the Coast to Coast Trail runs through a combination of the Seminole-Wekiva Trail and Cross Seminole Trail in Seminole County. We have part of the Florida National Scenic Trail that runs through part of the Flagler Trail, as well as picking up on the Cross Seminole Trail. So the St. Johns River to Sea Loop comes very, very close to our northern edge, and we're now connected to Volusia County for folks that want to participate in that one, as well as the Heart of Florida Loop. So we appear on a number of these maps already, which is great because those trails are now moving through our county. We just missed the whole Sun Trail funding mechanism as we were completing our portions of it. So it's kind of exciting to now bring that kind of exposure to the Flagler Trail. So not to repeat what you saw already, but this goes back into our history as well. These trails originally came from the establishment in the late 1800s, early 1900s of the various regional rail systems. This is about 1940 as these rail systems were slow shutting down, if you will. These were the corridors that were identified in Seminole County as we've gone through the history. On the east side of your screen, this is the area that we'll be talking about the most. We call that the Flagler Trail. And as you can see, it just connects up to our north and our south, and it doesn't necessarily connect inland at all. But we'll talk about what our efforts look like going forward from there. So that same idea was to preserve this corridor, just as they did in Orange County and in the West Orange Trail. And what resulted out of that was this map that's now about 30 years old, that identified the initial alignments of the Seminole-Wekiva Trail, the Cross Seminole Trail, and then the bold line on the left, or excuse me, the right part of your screen, which at that particular time was, I think, called the State Road 19 Trail, but has been renamed the Flagler Trail over the years. So this has guided us in the development and filling in the gaps on these trail corridors. And the notion that it wasn't just to make these regional connections, that we wanted to go ahead and make these part of and knit them into the fabric of Seminole County as it continued to develop over time. So once we had that adoption of the trails map, we put together and went after just about every funding source that was on the table at the time, and began to partner with folks, including the state, to identify those corridors and then go ahead and secure them for the further development. Back in November of 2000, we passed our first voter-approved bond referendum that included $20 million worth of trail projects. It also included a little bit for our natural land system, and we got to work. So in 2000, this is the extent of our regional trail system and how it was constructed. We had a whole 10 miles of paved trails and 12 miles of unpaved trails. Using that local infrastructure sales tax bond referendum that was put on the ballot, and including our natural lands and trails referendum, we were then able to increase that direct connectivity by the year 2015. This is around the same time I appeared at Seminole County. So our goal, as you can see, there were still a number of gaps that were identified that we had in our capital improvements plan that we were funding through an infrastructure sales tax program that's now been renewed for the 4th time in Seminole County. That particular funding mechanism is a collaborative between our 7 cities, the county, and the school district. And I'm happy to say that in November 2024, we had our 4th generation on the ballot, and it approved with its highest approval rating yet, reaching almost 75% approval from our residents. So folks feel very, very strongly about continuing to invest in our infrastructure, and not just in roadways, but in trails and parks as well. So as we stand here today, we've got about 140 miles of interconnected trails. They connect small downtowns and larger downtowns like the city of Sanford, which you'll see in just a moment. One of our pride and joys is that pedestrian bridge over I-4 that was built back in 2003. And that's a critical connection in our regional trails network that both the coast to coast and a number of the other trails take that crossing over I-4. So if you're really focused down in our, what we'll call our signature trails, and then some of our connectors, which are in blue, which is the way we're bridging the gap between a number of these trail systems. Everything that you see in bold right now is complete and does make its linkage all the way from county to county, county line to county line. So we link up with Lake County on the west, and that becomes the Seminole-Wekiva Trail, going all the way down to a future connection of the extension of the West Orange Trail, all the way down in the southwest corner of our county. We currently connect with the city of Orlando down on the south with the Katy Way Trail along our southern border. And then we've got plans to go ahead and connect to whatever Orange County is doing on that side. At one point, that the trail maps have shifted, but linking up our Flagler Trail to the south. So this is conceptually the Lake to Lake Trail through Seminole County. And you see a number of those lines already are solid lines. Some of those dash lines I'm here to report on you today, we're already in process of trying to close those particular gaps and being able to then add this to our trails map and have that adopted by our Board of County Commissioners. Back in, I think it was May, our board already endorsed the concept of the Lake to Lake Trail. So we're just seeing how this plays out, and we'll go ahead and update our maps concurrently as well. So looking at the eastern part of our county, first off, there's something important to note. This is on the Flagler Trail side. This is behind what was adopted in 2005, the rural boundary line in Seminole County. So everything and it's very, very difficult to see on this particular map, but everything on the eastern part of our county is within this rural district, which really limits the density and the intensity of development throughout that portion of Seminole County. And that's been challenged several times in court and has withstood the challenges over time. So we're very, very happy to have that in place. What it also says is that we're hard at work at trying to link up the Flagler Trail through those particular areas in a mainly rural area right now. Majority of the Flagler Trail is currently unpaved. That's okay. We'll continue to work on that as we go forward and as things develop. So I'm going to take you on a very brief tour of what that looks like and why it's really important for us in Seminole County to complete. So the circle that just showed up on your screen right there is at the very end or the terminus of the Flagler Trail at the St. Johns River. So using some of that locations from the past, we had what was called the Osceola Cypress Company Town that was developed in the very early 1900s. And this aerial is from 1940 as they were shutting down operations. There used to be a railroad bridge over the St. Johns River at this location. That bridge, based on doing some research and aerial footage, looks like by about 1947, that bridge vanished from the earth. We are very happy to have the remnants of that bridge on our portion, on the Seminole County portion, on that side of the river. So if you look really closely, you're now sitting on the St. Johns River on an airboat, and This is the old bridge abutment that is still preserved there today. We have a historical marker on the top of that bridge abutment, and the Flagler Trail currently terminates at that particular location, providing a vista over the St. Johns River. We've had recent discussions with Volusia County about, gee, wouldn't it be nice if we could link your trail system to our trail system with a new bridge across the St. Johns? So that's, while it's still a dream, we all know that dreams come true if you stay dogged and determination to go ahead and follow those things through. So we're continuing to look at that. So that's the vista from up on top of the bridge abutment. And like I said, we've got lots of historical markers around this particular area. This area is also part of the Lake Hardy Wilderness area, which is currently in ownership by Seminole County, and we operate and maintain that particular facility with a number of hiking trails as well. So this particular section of the Flagler Trail is currently preserved and will be for future generations to come. At Lake Hardy, we've constructed our first wildlife tower that folks can travel by foot or by bicycle from the Flagler Trail to be able to ramp their way all the way on up. This is an ADA accessible a wildlife tower that overlooks the Lake Harney Preserve. So it's all contained at that particular location and that end of the Flagler Trail. Another piece, once we cross through Geneva, there's a dashed line right there because we've got an incomplete trail system that we're still trying to fill in the gaps at that particular spot. But that gets us down to the Geneva Wilderness Area trailhead that picks right back up on the Flagler Trail. And that's where we operate our nature center. So this is the Ed and Imogene Yarborough Nature Center. It currently has all kinds of camps that we do for the kids and lots of outreach into our community, both indoor and outdoor trails and exhibitry, and lots of folks come there on the weekends and at other places for guided hikes and for bird watching. It's a huge spot for that. Thankfully, that portion of the trail is directly adjacent to the Little Big Econ State Forest. And the Flagler Trail runs directly through that operated natural land by the state and plugs into their equestrian trails, their mountain bike trails, and their hiking trails through that area. Most importantly, there are 3 bridges in that location that allow bikes and anybody else for that matter, including horses, to go over this bridge. We've got 3 bridges that cross the floodplain of the Econ-Lahatchie River in that location. Now, what's really interesting about this, and it's kind of hidden on this particular screen, is on the right side of your screen, those are the remnants of the bridge abutments that used to be part of that Flagler Railroad. So it's fantastic to be able to find yourself up against history while you're making that trek down the Flagler Trail. And that's what those bridges look like on 3 different portions of the Econ-Lahatchie River. So as we continue heading south through Seminole County, we reach Chuleota. Now, Chuleota is a mix between very old and very new. They're right on the edge of our rural boundary line. And part of that, we've started to look at having to pave portions of this trail and make connections back into the neighborhood. So what I've now done is I've flipped the screen on you. North is now facing to the left. The heavy line right along County Road 419 that you see through there, that's the current Flagler Trail alignment and the lake-to-lake alignment. And what we've been working on is the construction of new trailheads in this particular neighborhood, both along Lake Catherine. We have a county regional park in Lake Mills Park, which is 2 blocks from the Flagler Trail that we're now connecting back to the Flagler Trail. And it's now been signed, and we'll continue to do improvements in this particular area of the county to really make this part of the everyday trips for all of those rooftops that you see there on the aerial. This is what it looks like back at Lake Mills Park. Once you arrive there, lots of different activities that you can do there, mainly all passive in nature right on Lake Mills. So another portion of this that I can't ignore at this particular point is really where we look at the Lake-to-Lake Trail, which is downtown Sanford. The Sanford Riverwalk, if you look at that map, is completed. That heavy line along the south bank of Lake Monroe, which is where that's located. All of that's been completed, both working with the city and funding through both DOT and the county and the city to complete that. So the shot on your lower left is a portion of the Riverwalk Trail as it stands right now. There's other portions of the Sanford Riverwalk that are highlighted, and Sanford was just recently designated as a trail town. So we've got that going for us right there at that destination. The trail piece that is dashed at that particular part in that particular alignment is currently under construction. And the county is working on that and work with the city to construct that extension of the river walk back into the neighborhood along Celery Avenue. The picture on the lower right shows you a portion of that that's now been completed. That's obviously a paved portion. That will link us all the way out to County Road 415, which is also known as Lake Mary Boulevard, for those of you that are familiar with Seminole County, where Lake Mary Boulevard crosses the St. Johns River and links up with Volusia County's trail system. The notion at that we've been working on for years was to create this Lake Monroe Loop Trail. So a partnership between, planning partnership between Volusia County and Seminole County to create a 26-mile loop. And if you think about what other kind of events you can do in 26 miles, you get the idea of some of the ideas we've had working with our friends up in Volusia County to make that happen. So as I said, we're well underway in a lot of current projects, a number of which are engaged with the Flagler Trail. Our board is still very, very active in the opening of new smaller trail loops and pedestrian connections throughout the county back to our major trail systems. And a big portion of that has to do with the passage of our 4th generation sales tax. So those projects are being allocated towards the Flagler Trail as well, and through various improvements to link folks to these major trail systems and regional trail systems throughout our county. So to sum up where we're at with this, when this particular concept was really hatched a couple of years ago and we started looking at this, the opportunity to go ahead and link what we call our signature trails back with regional trail systems and be able to link that, the Flagler Trail corridor on the east back all the way to our largest city in Sanford, was a fantastic opportunity that we started working with our board on. And like I said, back in May, they endorsed this concept to go ahead and move forward with this. So our entire Trails Master Plan currently exists online. You can go there onto our website. And at this particular point, I'll be happy to wrap. How'd I do on time, by the way? All right. And I'll be happy to answer any questions that you might have. Thank you.
Rick, thank you very much. As you can see, part of my inspiration for this project got started when I learned this. What a great venue for getting this thing kicked off. Let me also now ask, in the eastern side of the county, which is a rural area, that's all part of your rural boundary area?
That is correct.
So that's part of the Florida Wildlife Corridor.
That is correct too. So one of the things that we're doing right now is updating these maps because we participated in another Florida Forever acquisition, the last phase of what used to be called the old Yarborough Ranch out in the eastern part of the county. We just added another, working with the state, another 1,600 acres within the Florida Wildlife Corridor that is directly adjacent and through the Flagler Trail. So the portion of that application was calling that out in the regional network and the statewide network of the Florida Wildlife Corridor, and the fact that so much of this exists out in that designated corridor.
Okay. And that northern part above what you have is S3 there, that's also part of the rural area?
That is correct. That is what we would probably call at this point, since we call it currently our Flagler Trail, that would be fantastic to designate as a spur off of the Lake to Lake Trail. The fact that we have both historical and other hiking and recreational aspects to that offer all the way to the east along the St. Johns River would be a fantastic destination for someone to be able to take back up there, come back, get on the main trail and continue on their trek down into Sanford.
So you'll be asking Metro Plan to put that spur,
absolutely,
the river on their map.
Absolutely. Likewise, there's a smaller spur on the south portion of that, that where we currently have, really, it's just signed at this particular point because at that area of the county, the character is extremely rural. We have mile markers and so forth that we had originally plugged into an older trails map that Orange County had generated a very long time ago, where we were going to make a connection to Orange County. Their maps were updated probably I think about 10 years ago. And if I'm misspeaking for those of you from Orange County, I apologize. To begin better alignment along, at that point, that's County Road 419, and to be able to locate along that frontage as well. So wherever we need to make that connection, we're ready to do that.
Okay, so from both a trail and a wildlife compatibility issue, this is a good place.
This is a perfect place, especially with the Florida Wildlife Corridor, and this being an area where we have now, again, and has been withheld in the courts, we are keeping the densities and development densities very, very low in perpetuity.
Okay, just a comment then, I've talked to the Florida Wildlife Corridor Foundation folks the other day. They're planning their next Close the Gaps workshop for this part of Florida, probably January, February. And they're gonna be asking us all to think about where existing infrastructure, existing roads and things may actually impede the ability of wildlife to move north and south and east and west through here. So you might want to start thinking about on your surface road maps where some of those choke points might be, because then you'll come prepared to that workshop to maybe put some actually future ideas on the map.
Absolutely. And one such place right there is part of this conceptual alignment is that blue dashed line that kind of goes east-west, connecting the Flagler Trail up with Sanford. That's State Road 46. In that particular location, it's a 2-lane road. FDOT has done PD&E, or at least looked at doing PD&Es on that one going all the way out to the coast. I know our Board of County Commissioners would like to keep that at 2 lanes, but it's a pretty wide right of way. So there's some opportunity there that if we were to go ahead and whether we run an unpaved or paved trail in that corridor, there's the opportunity to do so. It also has a great impact on wildlife moving through that particular corridor north-south. So whatever we do along State Road 46 is going to be really important.
Yes, yes, one of the few east-west corridors in the area. I'd also, just for a moment, Mr. Abel from City of Sanford, do you want to just make a comment on this from the city's point of view?
I think Mr. Durs pretty much kind of told the whole story for our trail system, but we're definitely in support of the trail, especially being a Northtown connection. And I know we talked about trailheads and things like that, so we're amenable to those. So we're very appreciative of it.
And have we asked formally for the city of Sanford to pass a resolution of support?
We have that in process. So
Okay.
we've got it drafted up. We were waiting for this meeting to see how everything goes. Definitely like to get your video and present that at the commission when we do the resolution.
Very good. So Gary, do you have any questions from Seminole County at this point?
Just a question of Rick, what we see that you refer to as the Flagler Trail. Is there any further action that's necessary by the Board of County Commissioners to adopt that, or is that currently adopted?
The Flagler Trail is currently adopted.
Okay.
And it is done so within our latest Trails Master Plan. The only piece that we would need to update at this particular point would be to formally update our maps, bring them back to our board, even though they've already gone ahead and supported and provide a letter of support for this concept, is to go ahead and update these particular maps. We'll bring that map back to the board and have the board approve that as well.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Dennis.
Let's call for Senator Pence.
Okay, welcome everybody. Again, Cedric Moffett from Orange County Parks and Recreation Principal Planner. I'm going to take a different approach in my presentation today and kind of focus it more on the Lake to Lake Trail. Because if I'd done a overall presentation for Orange County, it'd probably be a very long time on trails. So we'll get started with that. All right. Okay, so I'm just going to do a just quick overview of the corridor as we see it here and how we've kind of envisioned it. Right now, we envision about a trail that's probably going to end up being about approximately 23 miles long, going through the eastern part of the county, touching upon the main communities of like Bithlo, Wedgefield, and eventually to the south when you have new communities of Sunbridge and others there. Of course, nearby communities include Avalon Park, the Waterford Lakes area, to the south, more Moss Park and Lake Nona area. As far as political wise here, we'll be dealing with commissions 4 and 5, districts 4 and 5, and to the southern part of this, we'll also engage the city of Orlando, and I'm glad that Daphne was able to join us here. Okay, for the discussion here, I've divided the trail into 2 pieces, which will make more sense later. Once that's why I did that. Part of it is geographic, because the Orange County portion is going to involve a lot of crossings of major roadways, and that which would be very challenging. So kind of dividing those into those northern and southern sections, I think makes sense on that. But also I think from a jurisdictional, which I'll mention a little bit later. Okay, the northern segment is going to be about 11.7 miles and the southern 11.5. All right, okay, let's get going on the northern segment. Of course, again, it's a 11.7 miles, approximately, at least as we envision it now here. We have some nearby. Now, one of the things about this trail corridor is that, and about most of our trails, we try to link our different preserve areas, park areas, and things like that. So I just kind of noted that in this area here, we have our Bithell Community Park, East Orange District Park, Scott Preserve, of course, which is very important to this. And of course, there's a lot of other, in the next slide here, a lot of our green place properties, a lot of our preserved properties. As I say, I've invited like EPD here just in case anybody has any questions on that to speak more about the green place properties. But in this area, there's a lot of preserved areas going on, which will be important in developing the trail here. All right. Okay. One of the things going on in the east part of the county, I just want to give you like a quick little kind of other things that are going on, trail projects in the area. The different ones in yellow that you noted on the map here are different Orange County projects. One of the key things about making this corridor happen is that two of the trails that we have in our master plan, which was adopted in 2012 and also revised in 2022, are actually part of this corridor right here, which actually makes this a lot more doable because it's already part of our plan to make it happen and do right here and kind of done some of that bidding on that. Those include the East Orange Trail, the Avalon Trail. Also, the county is also pursuing other trail projects along different roadways. Luckily for, thank Brian Sanders and his leadership there with the county. We're on a lot of our new projects. We're actually including multi-use paths, which actually help make our network here expand our network quite a bit here. Also, some of the development partners in the area, like the Grow, which is now getting going. We work with them to actually include large trail networks in their developments here, which will also help expand this eventual network around this path, the corridor here. Okay, now getting into one of the things when I first met with Dale and the county staff, we kind of started brainstorming kind of about this corridor. Is we're saying, okay, we did a quick kind of can this be done kind of thing here, and my first answer to you, I think, is yes. I think the Orange County portion here is like literally can be done, can be accomplished here. And I just want to identify a couple of key challenges that we noted here as in our analysis here. Right away. Now, the northern segment, we're actually in very good shape here. We mentioned the Rails to Trails corridors. A lot of those have been actually turned over to Orange County, and we actually had them planned for some of our other trail projects for the East Orange Trail and Avalon Trail. So we actually control a lot of that right away now. It's not a matter of acquiring it. It's that we already have it there. Some of the road corridors that we're going to use, such as County Road 13, Dallas Boulevard, and Chuliota Road, of course, are county roadways, and have sufficient right of way to accommodate a trail if we were to take that path. So at least on the northern segment here, there's really not okay, we have to go and convince someone to, kind of buy land and all kinds of things like that. So I think that's one of the most important parts of this of moving the project, pretty quickly and moving forward here. Now, just mention here, I know it sounds kind of funny saying drainage ditches here. I just want to make a note on that right away. As we're going along some of those roadways, like County Road 13 in Dallas, you'll notice that if you go to the area, there's a lot of drainage ditches and a lot of drainage challenges, things like that. So that will affect eventually the engineering. And I just kind of want to mention that does come to play here. It is a major factor on it, but it's going to stop the project kind of factor. So, all right. Now, perhaps the biggest challenges, at least for this northern segment right here, are going to be the roadway crossings. I know the concept, the idea, and the ideal in any case like this, especially over major highways, is to potentially do a pedestrian bridge right here, whether it's at State Road 50 Colonial, number 1 there, or 528 Beach Line. I know that maybe the concept was to do more of something maybe through the Hal Scott and do a land bridge. I know that's the bigger idea kind of thing, at least. But as we're kind of looking in here and we're looking at the viability, this is kind of at least what we initially feel is to kind of use the existing crossings there kind of thing and kind of do improvements there. Now, I think there's going to be a lot of discussion. I know I'm glad that FDOT is involved and y'all have had conversations with District 5. So because it's their roadways and also I think the CFX, I'm not sure if CFX or the Turnpike Authority controls 528, but they're just passing through those corridors and dealing with those and is going to be a big challenge with them, because on our other trail projects we literally had on our Shingle Creek Trail probably about 2 years, maybe even more than that, of negotiations just to cross under a bridge in a project here. So those, I just want to note that that's sometimes become a big challenge. And so I just wanted to point that out to, as far as the Orange County portion, that's there, especially if you're going to do maybe a pedestrian bridge or something of that nature there. All right. Okay. Now we're moving over to the southern segment, and which is about 11.5 miles. And one of the big things that I wanted to note right off the bat here is that most of this, for the most part here, this part here is going through undeveloped areas. So you're kind of dealing with, and you're going to deal with a lot of newer developments that are being proposed here, whether Sunbridge, potentially Camino Real, and different others here, The key thing here, and this is why I'm glad that Daphne definitely joined us here, is that for the most part, this is jurisdictionally going to be City of Orlando. And so for Orange County's portion, is like we really, going to have to defer to the city as far as their work there. The good part is this here, is that early on when Sunbridge came through, when they came through as a development, we worked with Tavistock at that time there, about incorporating a large trail network within there. And I know Brian's worked very closely with them on the Sunbridge Parkway. At least our vision of how this trail gets done, the southern piece, is actually fairly easy. Let me say first thing, easy in that if you have Tavistock on board, Sunbridge on board, their existing network can potentially be used to actually get you from most of this area here into Osceola County, that connection. It's not that you're going to go and do a no trail. You basically use what you have, especially along Sunbridge Parkway. The challenging part here, now here's the bad part. To make that connection from where we have, whether we come from Halscott, in an idealized Halscott, or whether we come on Dallas Boulevard as County Visions, you have to deal with Deseret Ranches. I'm just going to throw that out. That's the and right now with all the, like you mentioned many times, that there's different rural boundaries, and the county, of course, just recently passed ours here. We have all different kind of things where we're saying like we don't want development in this area. Of course, Deseret Ranches has a totally different idea about it right here, And so dealing with them is going to be a real challenge to kind of make that connection across their properties. And so I see that as being, as far as Orange County, that's probably your biggest challenge as far as here is like, how do we make that connection from around Dallas Boulevard, Halscott area over to the Sunbridge properties? So saying I'll let Sunbridge and cities speak for themselves, but I think it's pretty much a path that you can do within those to get to Osceola County line, as long as you solve your Deseret Ranches problem there. All right.
And Cedric, I have an update for you at the end of your conversation on this. Okay.
Oh, excellent. Of course, like southern segment, of course, we don't have as much. Just noting here, we don't have as many Green Place properties in this area here, so that won't be as elite as maybe a potential hindrance. There is a new area, of course, along the edge of Sunbridge Parkway that is actually going to become preserved soon. I think is a part of that Osceola Parkway project here. So that actually it's a good thing because of how we're trying to make this actually a more natural, like a area here trail. But as far as stopping your project, that's I don't see that probably being an issue there. All right. As far as like, and also just want to show other trail things here going on in the area. Again, most of this will be from developers, like I said, from Sunbridge here, the neighboring Meridian Park. Also Camino Real if they come back in later on. As far as the county, we only have maybe the Innovation Way South roadway plan where we have a dual trail system along that roadway there. Right. See here. Okay, key challenges here, as I mentioned before, is dealing with the course private owners, right here, Tavistock, and also the Church of Latter-day Mormon Church on Deseret Ranches, and of course dealing with the City of Orlando. Okay, just the quick background, of course, it was late last year that Dale approached us and we started our conversations about this concept here, and we've kind of just been working with him and meeting with him to kind of develop this out right here. I know that the project, of course, was presented originally at the Florida Greens Trails Summit, introduced there. So, and In between, we were working on, as I say, I know you've been working with the different counties and, of course, jurisdictions to get different resolutions, and we were able to luckily get the Orange County Board to approve a resolution in support of the concept in July. Okay, and of course, we're here at our first workshop here trying to help make it happen. Okay, now this is just a little background here about how we kind of view this from the county's perspective here. Our typical trail development, just how we approach things. Normally we would, and you'll probably hear us mention this, we kind of see we suited a steady design construction thing. I think it's the usual FDOT kind of pattern thing here. We're kind of assuming that this will probably go along that kind of path. But that's just our typical approach. For Orange County, the Parks and Recreation Division will be the lead of the project. Okay, and then of course you can never have a trail conversation without talking about money. So just give an idea of what we normally typically, as far as our projects here. Of course, we use the federal local agency program. Of course, working very closely with Metro Plan, who has graciously funded many of our projects to help us, get our network fulfilled here. Of course, I know that primarily, I think this project here is going to be looking at the Suntrail program for funding here, and that's very key. In recent years, like you mentioned, a couple of years ago, they kind of made a major injection of about, I think, $200 million, if I'm not mistaken, into the program. And I don't know if many people saw this, but in this year's budget, the state legislature had actually clawed back that $200 million in the current budget and said, like, no, we're going to use this and put it somewhere else. Governor DeSantis, at the last minute in his vetoes and his veto things here, he actually took that out of budget actually and restored that money. I happened to see that when I was keeping an eye on all this kind of stuff here, and he literally saved that money and that's one of the key things here, I think, is actually the governor is a major, from what I've seen over his term here, 2 terms here, is a major supporter of trails. And so he actually saved our major funding source potentially for this trail. He actually literally himself put the money back in. So still there. And of course, we also use our local park impact fees as our main funding source here for a lot of projects. All right. Okay, just have any questions here?
Cedric, thank you very much. Very helpful. I'd like to just ask Tim from the Bithlo community area. Do you have any thoughts about this?
No, I just think through Bithlo, it's important that because of water quality issues, public water still hasn't gone there, that we get off of County Road 13 over to Bithlo Park and then back over to County Road 13 again. And I'm excited for a lot of reasons about improving the crossing safety at Colonial and County Road 13, because it's deadly today. It'll be deadly after FDOT widens the road with their current proposal. So hopefully this can add some added beef to it. And then our organization owns some property directly across the baseball fields on Washington, 2/3 of an acre, which we would be happy to bring into the project. And right next to it, Orange County owns 2/3 of an acre. So, that's a lot of it's wetlands, but I think that could be a great addition to the county park, trailhead type location, which we'd be happy to participate in. And then we've been developing the town center called Transformation Village, which is at 11th Avenue and County Road 13. So this literally would go right by our location, which has a lot of amenities, coffee shop, library, community gardens, aquaponics systems, community school. And we plan an expansion of that footprint to include a bunch of other things that I think will really fall in line with what you guys have planned. So we're excited about it. I think it could be great for the Bithlo community. And then lastly, there's a huge retention pond at 6th between County Road 13 and 6th and Old Cheney. And it's got a big ugly fence around it, but it's become like a really awesome place where birds accumulate and stuff. And I've had some discussions when I was on the FDOT advisory board on the widening of 50, if that couldn't be re-engineered to be a community space with gazebos and crosswalks and stuff. And I think this project has the real opportunity to bring back the historic grand entrance of Bithlo, which was Old Cheney Highway before Colonial was built. You'll see palm trees imported from Miami there and everything. So I think there's a lot of other additional positive impacts that the county could bring to the table with this trail coming through. And there's a convenience store that's closed right there at County Road 13 and 50. It's very awkward. They put a fence up because people naturally want to cut through because of the way the road is engineered. It would be great if the county could acquire that site also in this whole project and maybe clean up that whole visual right there on that corner.
I'm thinking we should actually, let me get your contact meeting,
Great.
with you, we actually can talk about more of these here. Because one of the things I didn't mention in my, presentation, I might not apologize for that, is all the different potential opportunities for interaction with nature there. Like, as I say, we did in our vision, not necessarily directly go through Howscott Preserve. There's many reasons for that from some certain county regulations, and things of that nature here, but also potential for community, let's say like a lot of negative feedback on a lot of things here. So there's some reasons for that, but that does not stop us from potentially connections too, because we're right there by Howscott. There's lessons we can do, whatever, we can come up with different trailheads, things of that nature to interact with properties like that and others along that path there.
Cedric, can I just clarify that? Because sometimes people don't realize bicycles are now currently allowed in Howscott Preserve.
Yes.
So you could, if there was a trailhead next to, say the Sun Trail comes down Dallas, trailhead, you could get off the Sun Trail and ride your bicycle in Howscott. There's no limitation on that at all.
And things of those nature there. And that's not think I'm speak more around with EPD, maybe speak more on that. But the thing is here, and that's kind of how I see that happening here. The trail might itself maybe along the particular roadway itself.
Okay.
But that does not stop you from being able to access the different natural areas along the path right there, and that's what we would kind of work with in the concept here, Okay. I will say though that the bigger idea of the kind of going straight through Howscott, potentially doing the land bridge and things of that nature, they're great. It's not that we're like against or anything. It's just that's something we just don't. I'm just gonna be very honest, very upfront about it. Don't necessarily see that happening, right? And just kind of
one thing, and I've talked to Gary about this, that was an idea. There's probably better locations for a land bridge for wildlife than where we initially put it.
Yeah.
The idea was to use it both for pedestrians and wildlife. But so, one of the consequences of the decision to go down Dallas is that land bridge may need to move somewhere else.
Yeah.
As long as you're aware of that. Okay.
Dale, I did want to mention too, Avalon Park seems very excited about connecting with this project.
Yes.
Talking to Ross Halley, the engineer from there, he seems very excited about it.
And I'm glad you mentioned that. It's like I've actually, as I've looked at this here, as we mentioned the situation with Deseret having to there, I always like to have my contingencies in here, and that's one of the reasons I say the project can be done. Our original Avalon Trail actually had a connection through Howscott, going through Howscott through the power line corridor. It was going to connect over to the existing Avalon Park Trail that we have over there at Avalon Trail. We, of course, deal with I believe it's OUC, I think, who owns that corridor. And any other regulation issues here. But if you had to, there are ways to potentially get around that situation if we can't make it happen there. But the idea of making a connection to Avalon Park is still in our thinking here. To say there are some challenges, as I say, with the corridor, kind of going through Howscott and also the power line corridor. But it's something that can be looked in.
Yeah, and Tara, just say, and we're seeing more and more of that willingness from a lot of the conservation land managers to accommodate connections. The issue is over pavement versus non-pavement, but bicycles are definitely allowed in all these areas. Tara, you had a question?
Yeah, I actually had a follow-up to Tim. The convenience store you're talking about, is it a potential brownfield site?
Likely,
Because-
based on the other ones.
Okay, because we have a brownfields assessment program. So if there is a site that could serve as a trailhead in one way or capacity going over to public ownership, we could do at no cost a assessment of the site so that.
That would be exciting because
Yeah.
there's a Wawa going in at 419 right now. We don't need another gas station in Bithlo. So I think getting that out of there would be awesome.
So yeah, if that's something you all are interested in, we can help facilitate that conversation.
Super.
Yeah, and this is in my looking at the whole corridor, this 50 crossing is probably the most challenging place we have in the entire corridor.
And I wanted to mention, and as I mentioned some of the project, and I didn't mention the particular trails there. One of the things I'm actually excited about in that area is that FDOT is planning to actually do widening from just right near Avalon Park all the way over to 520. The next couple of years is actually, if I'm sure the FDOT people here can correct me if I'm wrong in there. But I think there's 2 projects they're going to be doing where they're actually going to be widening the roadway. And as part of that widening project, they're actually putting 2 14-foot trails on the north side and the south side throughout the entire corridor.
Okay.
So, and at that, one of the things we could do if we don't foresee or if they're not seeing us maybe doing over pedestrian bridge over that large, which I do have a challenge seeing them approving that. is actually work with us at that time. You're doing these trails here, make that crossing
Okay.
where we intend to come through better. And maybe that's a way to use, work.
State kept saying there wasn't enough right of way, but this would be even more exciting opportunity at County Road 13 and 50 to go
Yeah.
under and or over.
I think
But I also think of, Bithlo as it's getting a renaissance, back to its heyday of the early 1900s. This is the eastern gateway to Orange County. And so whenever I'm driving down I-4 and going toward downtown and I see, City of Orlando on that crosswalk, I think a lot of things could be accomplished by doing a crossover right there, in addition to not having people splattered, on the street like that happens often.
And I would love to see it. I think the key challenge on it right there is, of course, as I say, luckily FDOT is involved, and you've had conversations with them, is whether that would be allowed, especially appropriate for such a large right of way and a major roadway like that.
Well, this being a major regional ecotourism corridor might need to be readdressed and thought through. Okay, Cedric, if you don't mind, I'd like to, Lisa, could you pull up the thing from CF? Cedric, I haven't had a chance to talk with you about this, but I did call CFX and talked to Glenn Pressamond a number of weeks ago about this because of the issues you raised. And what we learned, and this graphic kind of shows it, is they actually have reserved some land on the south side of the CFX within their boundary. And they've already engineered that entire corridor as a future light rail possibility. When I asked Glenn whether we could possibly put a trail in there for the time being, he said, let me take a look at it. And this is what resulted. There appears to be enough room to do this and not coming to Deseret, coming under Dallas Boulevard within the CFX right away, all the way onto the Tavistock Sunbridge property.
Excellent.
And they seem as long as everybody knows that they won't be managing or have any liability for the trail in that area. And that if at a future date, Orange County or the City of Orlando needed a corridor through there, the trail would have to move. Okay, but this would get us there.
That's massive news. As I say, that's massive news because I say when I was looking at the overall corridor, this is this is big here. I know there was before. There actually, I think, is on the Florida Green. I think it's on the existing map.
Yeah,
they actually have along where the bright line went through.
Yes.
Actually, a trail corridor there, so it's already kind of like on the map already. So the idea was kind of there to potentially put a trail in there, So
that was one of the major concerns, and one of the major purposes for having this collaborative workshop is to try to address the comment I hear from some of the other regional trails. Boy, we wish we had everybody in the room to start with this, because these transportation projects have 10 and 20-year lead times, and the sooner you can begin talking and affecting them, the more likely you're going to get a result that works. So here result that may work.
As I say, that's
okay.
news. I'm very
good
for that. So.
Well, Cedric, thank you very much. And Daphne, do you want to just come up and talk about it all, City of Orlando's point of view on this whole project? Or can you do it from her seat?
I was just gonna do it from my
She's
seat.
just gonna talk.
Yeah, for a few minutes.
Right, because I wasn't prepared with slides or anything
Okay.
like that, but I'm excited to be here, part of the conversation. I think Cedric did a great job breaking down, Orange County and our City of Orlando's, like the potential impact that the trail will have for us. I'm all for it. I love trails. I'm our trail planner. We just kicked off our bike plan update project just last week. So I'm excited for this trail to be a project that's going on and for us to be able to be engaged and appreciate the opportunity to be engaged as the planning process goes forward. So yeah, definitely I'm excited to take this information back home and let our higher ups know, because I'm sure there's, powers to be above me that have ideas for the portion of the city where the trail is going to be proposed for. And I'm happy that Tavistock is also here. So they're being coordinated alongside this project. So just going to take this information home and see how we could also take part in put together a resolution also to support the trail and to continue to be engaged along the planning process.
Brian, did you have any comments on this?
Just a note on the annexation of the Sunbridge area. Prior to that, we'd gone through studies, which includes a dedicated corridor for a trail along the roadway for the entire length, all the way down to the county line. So I'm hopeful that the city and Tavistock will continue that idea. And basically, that's a big chunk of this southern project. And, yeah, I'm excited for all that to come
Okay.
forward.
Well, with that in mind, Lisa, would you bring up that, what is it, map 17? Oh, that's just a graphic showing how it would look. It's not the greatest, what might not be visually the greatest part of the whole trail, but boy, it works. And we own it, okay, and it's available. Could you go to the next map on the story map, please? While she's bringing up the story map, I would just like to acknowledge something that Brandon Littleton. Brandon, would you raise your hand again and just wave? This story map was a product that Brandon and his company helped us pull together to illustrate all this. And if you all want to, if you're interested in the story map format and want to use any of this, I'd ask you to speak to Brian at the end of the meeting and get on board with this. But this shows you what is now being contemplated through the Sunbridge property from those red triangles right at the 528, which would now be the white line coming over to Wedgefield and down. It would be a corridor coming all the way through Cross Nova Road, all the way down to Lake X, the Kirchman property down there. And today at the table, one of the unique things about this project is that we actually, after years of conversation with the landowners there, they have agreed to consider this, seriously consider this. And I've invited Mr. Clint Beatty with Sunbridge. Clint, would you like to go up to the mic and say a few things about this?
Dale, before he does, I just
Sure.
want to ask Cedric, everything that you presented this morning on the north end of your north segment, it aligns with Seminole County. I want to make sure of that. Yeah. And then the 23 miles or however long the two segments add up to is consistent with the concept for the Lake to Lake Trail. And if there's anything else that needs to be taken before the Board of County Commissioners for approval.
We're trying to date in our transportation element, I believe that includes the trail in there.
Well,
Or will be potentially.
complicated right now with the state of Florida denying our all staff initiated comp plan amendments are on hold until our ear-based amendment, because it was co-located with our ear amendment as well. So now we're kind of stuck for a period of time.
Okay. And how about the city, Daphne? Do you have it adopted by the city commission?
Yes.
Okay.
So. Okay. Yes, we recently did do an update for our transportation element for our comp plan. So it's been adopted and in place.
Okay. And on timing, Brian, we don't know what the timing for that is.
I've been asking, they're nice for now. They were concerned that additional comments would come out of the state, so they're just kind of holding right now. I have no timing on that.
Okay. The only thing we're waiting for are resolutions of support from the cities, Sanford and the city of Orlando. Mr. Beatty.
Well, good morning again. My name is Clint Beatty with Comstock Development. And when Dale came to me with this idea and when we sat and talked about it, I'd like, first of all, everyone in this room to understand a key element. We serve as the master developer for Deseret Ranch. Sunbridge is the first 27,000 acres of that ranch that is being activated for development. They are supportive of this effort coming through the land that is called Sunbridge. So for many of us who have lived in Orlando for decades, the mystique and the mystery behind Deseret Ranch and what they will or won't do and all that kind of stuff, I think it's very important to start with their leadership is very supportive of us as a master developer trying to incorporate that into the overall development. Now, why is it we've coined our portion of it the Headwaters Trail? And when speaking to Dale about some of the Florida Wildlife Corridor and special funding to our south, right there at the bottom is Lake Conlin. It's just off our property. It actually serves as one of two headwaters for the Everglades and as the headwaters for the Econ Swamp, which flows into the St. Johns River. So we have some pretty phenomenal natural assets that we are considering. How do we incorporate the trail and leverage those? To that end, with Brandon's company, Half Associates, we have embarked on looking at our trail master plan for all 27,000 acres. And Brian, you are correct. We still are continuing the Sunbridge Parkway multi-use trail. That said, in Osceola County, we're actively looking to realign where that road passes through Osceola County. We're in a big road study right now, and we're trying to leverage the best places to create the spurs and the offshoots into the natural areas. Because I guess all of you who deal with existing conditions look at us as blessed and go, we have a blank slate. We do have a blank slate, sort of. Development is happening already in Osceola County, and it's starting in the city of Orlando next year. So we are actively trying to figure this out. We're very supportive of this effort. We kind of view ourselves like we need to figure this out to be a player to help all of you, because if we don't, it kind of messes up the game. So we're very supportive of it. If we can make it happen, we're going to try and plan for it.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Any questions for Clint before? Yeah, would you leave that graphic out for people to look at if you don't mind?
Where do you want it?
Just, yeah, put it in front of the
I'll
podium.
give it to the timekeeper.
Oh, give it to the timekeeper. Thank you. Anyone have any questions of Mr. Beatty? Okay, so we've been through Orange County now, and I've got one other thing I would like to mention before we go to Osceola County. We have in the room two representatives from the Space Coast TPO, Georgianne and Sarah. Thank you very much for coming to this. When I went to them a number of months ago and told them about this initiative, one of the questions was, well, we'd like to connect to it too. And I said, well, we have limited options. And would you folks consider putting the US 192 causeway, it's Osceola County, on, as well as the State Road 50 corridor from Brevard County? And Georgianne, would you like to just mention what Brevard County has done?
In September, our governing board, we are already making some edits to our showcase trail map from two trail studies that we had completed in September. And so we went ahead and added State Road 50 and US 192 to our showcase trail map that has been adopted via resolution by our governing board as of September 11th. However, listening to Mr. Rick over there, I'm thinking that we might need to also add State Road 46 as well.
Would love to have that conversation. That's exactly what I was thinking before you got there. So that's
Yeah.
fantastic. Thank you.
But yeah, but we'll chat.
And on the night that was high water, we built 46 everything. We determined almost immediately who the excellent crossing areas, all associated with the 30 minutes of the 46. We're total kind of water cost. So things are moving further up. So if you would do that, and the board approved it, so they're on your maps. Right?
Correct. Yep, it's up on our website, and I also sent over the resolution and the maps to Gary and to you as well. So yeah, so got something done.
So we have it all the way to county line on your trail map.
So it right now extends out to the Flagler Trail. So most of State Road 46 at that particular spot is what we have it designated. This would be a new connection that we've never had on our map before. And it'd be one that we would be very happy to start going down that path. No pun intended. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. So we can go ahead and do that as well. Yeah.
Orange County.
You know, to look at it more like closely here kind of thing, but just the idea in general is not, it's not seem like objectionable, you know.
Just about doing that.
But I know.
And do last possible.
Jason?
I'm Jason Hickson, Director of Parks and Public Lands in Osceola County. So mine should be much shorter, because ours is so far out to the east that I think the challenges are pretty self-explanatory, and we'll get into it here. All right, so first, the update. The county was presented this trail earlier this year, and they're fully supportive of the concept, kind of like the rest of y'all. But we have the same concerns. So far, any future cost participation is still going to have to go to the board. Just in concept, they're supportive of it. So that's obviously going to be a challenge, number one, that we're going to have in the future. The other part here is that a little less than half of your trail is obviously here in Osceola County, but most of it is outside of our urban growth boundary, right? So we've got the majority of what's in our urban growth boundary. Clint Beatty just got through speaking to with Sunbridge. So that area is it's gonna be fantastic for there. The challenge is gonna be outside of there, where we don't really have much infrastructure for supporting, let's say the multi-day users or even some of the day users, just because you've got about 45 miles that, as I've been told, is out in the hinterlands. It's very rural, right? And so that's going to be a challenge. We don't really have any named trails that at least the county doesn't have any named trails that cross this. So we don't really have a lot of opportunities for trailheads that right out the gate. Fish and Wildlife has approximately, I want to say about 60,000 acres that's adjacent to a lot of this. So I didn't see them being here, but I think they'll need to get included because their land will be, I think, pivotal to those trailheads in this area.
Jason, to that point, they were invited. They may be joining digitally, but
Okay.
we have visited with them actually in the field.
Perfect.
And they were just like with House Scott in Orange County, they already allow bicycles,
right,
as well as pedestrian and horses into their property.
Yeah.
And they were very supportive of connecting as long as this trail was located along 441.
Okay.
And they have absolutely no concerns. And I mentioned the issue of trailheads.
Yeah, that's
And
what I was
they've got a
gonna-
couple of ideas
Do
where
they?
they already
Okay.
have some
Fantastic.
facilities. So future facilities.
Yeah,
would
that's
be
great
welcome.
news.
Okay.
Awesome.
So they're aware of this and supportive, but they're again waiting to see what happens and where this goes.
Fantastic. Yeah, that's a big one. Okay, so what I'm doing here is presenting that we've got some alternatives to the layout. What I've shown here is just one concept. There's many different ways that can go through, but the idea being that it would probably be great to utilize our urban growth boundary a little bit more. I know the focus is to try to keep this inside the wildlife corridor, but the benefit we have at Osceola County is close to 90% of our county is in the corridor. The bulk of this county is there. So you'll have some places where you'll have opportunity to stay in the urban growth boundary and still stay in the corridor. So if you're going to do something like that, what would probably be great is to use some of what's already adopted as some of our TRN, comp plan, transportation network alignments, if you're going to snake through there. Also, obviously, I'm glad to see St. Cloud is here. Anything that kind of goes through the St. Cloud area, or if it was to go into the Kissimmee area, we'd want to get them involved as well. The one named trail that we do have in our county is the Florida Trail. And I would say of all the counties, Osceola County has about the most amount of miles in it. And that's because the through hikers that are coming from down south, the Everglades, once they get to that point that's just north of Lake Marion, they get a choice between taking the eastern path and the western path. And that western path, if they take that option, the entire route through our county is all road miles, which is never, most people don't like taking that choice. So if one of those alternative routes was to hit that trail, that would benefit those users. Additional challenges that we've got with the route that you currently have there. Clint just got through speaking to Sunbridge properties. So we've got the farmland reserve up there. This cuts through. I would assume if they're working with you with Sunbridge, that do you? Okay, great. But most of what you've got going through the county is right of way. Not all of it is maintained right of way. Some of it is unmaintained right of way, like what leads up to that top property there. So there'll have to be some alterations there, but it's in right of way. Down to the south, at the very southern end of where our county goes into Okeechobee, you've got a portion of private that is Florida Power and Light Company. They'll obviously need to either get on board or some kind of easements, acquisitions.
Red line along the east side on the southern end of Osceola County, is that the railroad corridor or the Florida Power and Light corridor? Or is it the same?
So the parcels represent their area.
No, the red line.
Yeah, that line is your trail, the Lake to Lake Trail alignment that's currently been shared.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's the old railroad corridor. That's the old P-Vine.
Okay, gotcha. All right. Oh, and then one other challenge I would say is no matter which route you go, whether it's the route you guys have already presented, or if you do an alternative alignment, biggest challenge I think is going to be getting south of the turnpike. I know that your route here takes it through like an overpass that's drainage underneath, though I don't know that would support pedestrian.
Yeah.
And if we did some kind of bridging or something, I mean, I don't know how that works with the turnpike, but I think that's going to be a giant challenge to get over.
Yeah, it may be the biggest one in that southern part.
Right, exactly. And I believe that's it. Yeah. So any questions?
Any questions? Just a comment, Jason, and thanks for coming here. If this is all compatible with your urban boundaries, your rural boundaries, and you have an ecotourism trail and that's part of South County, would be supportive of that concept?
So I don't think I'm understanding the questions. So are you saying, I mean, there's portions that are inside of our urban growth boundary.
The rural growth
The
boundary.
rural portion, I'm not sure. Could either of you speak to it?
Yeah, trails are promoted in our rural area.
Okay, so this is compatible with your vision for the rural areas of the county.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Any other questions?
Yeah, Jason, what we're looking at on the map here, the kind of magenta line along 441,
Sure.
is that is consistent with the Lake to Lake story map? Is that?
Yeah, the one to the far east.
The one to
So
the
that current L2L Osceola alignment down the legend below, that solid line, that's the one that was presented on the story map.
Okay.
The dashed line that you see there is just an alternative that I was using to demonstrate maybe going through the urban growth boundary a little more.
What of these lines is adopted by the?
So what's adopted is the concept of going from the north to the south. We've added that magenta line, the solid line, to our TRNs, but it's open for alternative routes. It's there as a placeholder in concept.
Yeah, the orange line that squiggles up is the Florida National Scenic Trail.
Yes, sorry, that's the Florida Trail.
So would you stay up there just for a minute, because I'd like to report on the next part of this, which is Okeechobee County.
Okay.
And one of the suggestions that's come back pretty early on would add an additional alignment in Osceola County. Okay.
Sounds good.
All right, and I'll mention that in just a second. We have been working now since the very beginning of this project to make sure that City of Okeechobee and Okeechobee County have been included in this. And we have gotten nothing so far but positive response back on the question of an ecotourism corridor that would be available for cyclists and other visitors. A lot of support for that idea, followed almost immediately with, but we have no resources to help you develop this. Okay, even planning resources are a minimum. The person I was talking to was the deputy county administrator, and she was not only the deputy county administrator, but also head of Parks Department and transportation in the airport. So her job is very, very complicated and busy. But we're making some progress now. We've reached out to the Heartland TPO and the Central Florida Regional Planning Council for this. Are scheduling a workshop November 18th at the Chamber of Commerce in Okeechobee and inviting people to come in and participate in this. But one of the first suggestions that's come out is the corridor that we described, the Greenways and Trails Foundation, the Florida Wildlife Corridor Foundation described on the story map, brought it from the Peavine Railroad, which was never completed all the way. It brought it into Kissimmee Prairie State Park and then followed an existing two-track road called the Military Road over to the Kissimmee River Valley, where there are tens of thousands of acres of natural land, where we would join up to an existing one-way paved road that would bring us all the way down to US 98. That's what's shown on our maps. She said, that's a great route. There's incredible ecotourism opportunities out there, but boy, have you got a lot of groups you're going to have to deal with, from the water management districts to the forestry to state parks. And it's a lot of conservation lands, a lot of areas of sensitivity and concern. The first comment was, is there enough right of way along US 41 to bring it all the way to Okeechobee, because that road's there? And we said, we think there is. And so far, our preliminary look is that there is right of way there for a 4-lane highway. And we'd like to see that, if you're supportive of it, that also be put on the map as an alternate way, just from Kenansville, stay within the 441 corridor to Okeechobee, as while we considering this other more conservation heavy end loaded corridor up there. I think both these corridors are viable and they complement each other, but I hadn't had a chance to discuss with you before today that possibility. Do you have an initial reaction to that?
I mean, I don't know that any of that's my call. I don't think the county is against that as being an option, especially staying in the right of way. But I think the challenge will still be that you're going to have close to 40+ miles of nowhere for people to stop.
Yes,
Yeah.
and we're going to talk about the second part of the
Okay.
workshop today.
Yeah, sounds great.
Would that be consistent from your point of view? On the 441, adding that to the map as well as what was being shown?
Yeah, we're gonna start looking at it in more detail. But at the end of the day, to get the trail to connect makes sense.
Yes, okay. And it creates a big loop down there, which from an ecotourism point of view is a very desirable thing to happen, okay? All right, so I just wanted to make sure that was mentioned in the context of today's discussion, okay?
Great
Any
news.
other questions from Osceola County? Okay, did St. Cloud, would you, Tammy, would you like to say anything from St. Cloud's point of view?
Yeah, so we work together to connect the trails and make sure we align with the county's trails master plan and Centrail and everything that comes through the city. So the city is supportive of the alternative route if that's something that we want to explore. We have a lot of good development that's coming in that area that could help, fund the trail and help us get it done. So,
Are you participating in
sure.
Might want to look at that.
Yeah.
Because right now, there's really no facilities
Mm-hmm.
in St. Cloud.
Okay. Yeah. That'll be good.
Real about.
Yes, definitely. Thank you.
That concludes basically the first part of this workshop. But before we break for lunch, and we're asking to bring the lunch back in, because the second part of the workshop is going to be very part of the line, which is critical to this project. And to tee that up, before we break for lunch, I want to remind everybody in the room
That in all your resolutions, we asked you to include not only support for the alignment of the corridor and for the concept of an eco-heritage tour being put on the priority Sun Trail list, which everybody has agreed to, but we also put out the idea of us continuing to work as a collaborative effort to do this trail. And the second part of our workshop is going to be talking about how we're going to do that and why it's so critical to the long-range success of this project. That goes to money. The two questions that every trail gets asked, every advocate for any trail gets asked is, where's the money going to come from to build this trail? And where's the money going to come from to operate and manage this trail? Those are two critical issues. This first part of the workshop was to begin to work toward the process of securing funding for the construction of this trail in coordination with the counties through the Sun Trail program. As you all know, that money is very desirable money right now, and everybody is competing for it, okay? And it's a big state. So when we went to the central office of DOT the other day and asked them, they said, well, you're going to try to get on the priority list? We said, yes, it's going to go through the process. We're going to get on the list. They said, well, there's no money. I said, well, business as usual. There's no money. There never is enough money. But that's not the answer. The answer is this is the starting point for all the new money that we're going to be seeking out there as part of this thing. Clearly, the early work has to be in the county because the county is going to have the responsibility for managing these corridors. They have a very vital stake in putting the trail where they want it and not where another agency of government may want it. So the counties have got to lead this effort, and I would just appeal to all of you as you go back to your county workshops, your county capital plan, long-range plans, and your operating plan, to be thinking about some of the critical points in the county that need special attention. And clearly, in Orange County, I'm thinking State Road 50. Okay, that is going to be an extraordinarily complicated and important solution if we can't figure out a way to get across 50, not only safely, but enjoyably. It's unimaginable right now. That's a big lift. So I hope that at the county level, there's some planning and some monies being thought about to help address those problems. Because if we can solve those problems at some level, it's going to make the rest of the funding efforts so much easier. So the counties have got the lead on this, and they've got the heavy lift on this. But where we're hoping Sun Trails will come in is when we get to the big dollars, the construction dollars. Okay, if that makes sense. So that's where this is going, and with MetroPlan agreeing to lead this effort and us and the three counties being organized in MetroPlan, it makes like a very logical and good fit for how we're going to coordinate all this stuff. Okay, so that's the first part of the pitch. I'm going to stop us right now and let you break for lunch, bathroom break, and if you could come back in 10 minutes, we're going to get into the next part, which is maybe the most important about part of this whole workshop, is how in the world are we all going to be able to afford to operate and manage this whole trail corridor effectively forever. All right. Thank you. Gary, is it okay? Is the lunch here?
Yeah, through the door here to my left and into the break area, there are box lunches.
So use the restrooms up the hall, get your lunch, and come back in here. It's now 20 till 12. So at 10 till 12, we'll reconvene and we're going to talk about money. Well, if you don't come back after lunch, you don't get any money. Thank you. As it turns out, I'm the bad boy here. I was the last one back in the room, so I grant myself a dispensation for being 10 minutes late. We're gonna start as soon as Gary gets back in the room.
As long as you say we're gonna help them until.
I've got an interview at 10 o'clock. I have to get Doug, so I was like 12:30, but you know where I'm at.
Lisa, do you know where Gary is? All right, can I start? All right, can everybody hear me? Before we get into the funding part of this again, while you're eating, I'd like to draw your eyes back to the graphic that we talked about at the very beginning. And Lisa, could you put that graphic possibly back up again on the screen? This is not just a pretty picture. This is a schematic for the future. All right. And I want to spend a little bit of time with you on how this schematic is built, because I think it's going to help us in guiding our thinking. So when Lisa gets it on the screen. By the way, if you all want, we found this whole route by driving it. You can get out and drive almost this entire corridor and see almost everything that you've seen today firsthand, and I'd encourage you to do it. But if you do drive on parts of the highway, slow yourself down and imagine yourself not traveling through it at 60 miles an hour, but at 10 miles an hour, because it changes the whole experience. All right, what you're looking at here is a graphic that has three critical components. The left-hand corner is the transportation corner. Okay, and that's what we're mostly all familiar with. And the essence of a transportation corridor is it needs to be safe and efficient. And from a motorist point of view, that usually means fast. I want to be able to get to my destination as quickly as I can without an accident and without any delays. So safe and efficient. So as you can see on the bottom of the graphic, we've put high speed toward the transportation end of it. And on the right-hand side of the wildlife corridor, they have a different point of view. Black bears and other animals traveling through this, they want to be safe too, but they want it continuous. They don't want to have to get to the road and then figure out how am I going to dash across 4 lanes of high-speed traffic. So on the bottom, you'll see we put another dimension. Low speed is on the wildlife corridor, closer to their corner, and in between are tunnels. Okay, this is the preferred way that wildlife love to get across highways. They like to go under them. And so that usually means elevating the roads over the top to create at-grade tunnels. And it's the way to bridge the high-speed transportation world to the wildlife corridor view, the most cost-effective way to do it. To do that, it's really good to build those tunnels and the roads over the tunnels before the project starts. Okay, before you built the road and then you have to come back and retrofit it. So there's the road going through on the bottom of the graphic, as you can see, with the trees more to the right and park benches to the left. At the top of it is the trail corridor. And these are all corridors. They are all long linear structures. But from a trail user's point of view, they have different matrix. They also want to have an efficient corridor. They want to be able to travel without worrying about getting lost or missing the turn or having to stop at hundreds of intersections and wait. Okay, but their primary use is not efficient. They don't want to get there fast. They want to get there fun. They want to be able to get through the trail safely and enjoy themselves while they're doing it. And they're willing to sacrifice speed for recreational pleasure. So how do we get all of these things coming together in this corridor is what we're going to constantly be coming back to. On the left-hand side, you'll see that between the transportation connector and the trail corridor connection, we've got high-speed grade, then we've got a land bridge, which is the way to get over the highway, and then we've got low speed at the top end. All right, so it helps me not to forget some of the pieces when I look back at this. Help me work on and improve this so that we can use this to explain to our partners in this what we're trying to do. Because this is a new concept that Florida is experimenting with now, and this isn't the standard operating procedure when you ask DOT to build a trail. These are things that are really now expanding their operational base, and they need to spend more time thinking about, and they're willing to do so. So the graphic is up there. All right, now I promised you after, Gary, before we do that, do you have any comments to say about the first part of this meeting? Do you have what you need on the design, planning design, and construction startup phase of this thing?
The only thing I would comment on is just the feeling to whether we're in a spot to put this on MetroPlan's map, given the uncertainties that Jason was talking about in Osceola County, and being respectful of that. And you had suggested to me earlier showing both the 441 right of way and the P-Vine is within the corridor.
Yes.
And if we can do that, then I think I'm fine.
I'll turn it to.
Your maps are usually very conceptual, right?
Yeah.
You get like a wider swath, so
Yeah.
if we veer off of a right of way and go through the state park or veer through a part of St. Cloud to tie into an existing trail,
Yeah.
that's not a big deal.
And Dale, do you see that as being Sun Trail, getting on Sun Trail's map that way? Or does it have to be more refined?
I don't know yet.
Okay.
I don't know. I think what we need to do is when you're ready and you feel the counties are ready, is to submit the alignment, including multiple alignments, to both DEP and DOT. Because they're not ready to rank either one of them, so there'll be chances to modify as we learn more.
Okay.
But I'd like to, my personal preference would be to include the universe and then kind of pare it down.
Okay. But we're pretty tight very tight, I'd say, in Seminole County, and pretty tight in Orange.
Yeah.
Right, with the alignment, consistent with the alignment.
And about 20% of the way down in Osceola, we're
Yeah.
pretty good too.
Okay, all right. And then the only other thing that, just a comment, is there any value to changing names of trails? I mean, the Flagler, do we all need to call it the Lake to Lake Trail, or do we have the Flagler piece of the Lake to Lake Trail?
The way the coast to coast came about is it was the overriding concept for the whole corridor. But in Pinellas County, they still call it the Pinellas Trail, a segment of the coast to coast trail. And I suspect that's what we're going to have all the way through. You're going to want to keep the Flagler Trail, are you not?
Yeah, so even with the coast to coast that goes through Seminole County right now, that's actually a portion of the Cross Seminole, as we call it, and the Seminole Wekiva. So the overlay is the coast to coast. We still have our local names for it, and we can use them interchangeably. It's not a big deal.
So it's going to be the Flagler Trail in Seminole. Then Northern Orange County, what are you going to call it?
Well, that's the interesting part about this one here. Even though it's our East Orange and Avalon trails, since it's basically all new, we literally could potentially, just use the Lake to Lake name right here.
You could?
Could right here, as opposed to like say coast to coast. The West Orange Trail is part of that. We're still calling it West Orange Trail
until it gets on the official DOT maps. Then you're stuck. So work on that one, okay? And then city, are you okay with the Headwaters Trail for Sunbridge? Okay. And you're
Yeah, Dale, I think it's, I think for all of our sakes, from an environmental standpoint, the regional significance of the headwaters adjacent to our property is key to driving some of the environmental messaging that will go with this trail through multiple counties. So I'd be pretty bullish on keeping our portion named that if it works.
Yep. Okay. And to that end, one other part of the graphic that I didn't point at earlier is in the middle of all this you'll see that there's three other concepts. There's existing roads, which usually mean the three R's. You have to, what is it, repair, resurface. Every 20 years, DOT is required to take care of existing roads first. So as they do that, what we're thinking about is if we've designated areas of particular wildlife crossing sensitivity, they may want to stop and say, do we want to widen this road or do we want to shrink this road? We might want to slow traffic down as opposed to widening it so that it accelerates it. Then the north one is, of course, new roads. We're going to try to plan all this into the new roads before they're built. And on the other side, I got reminded by some of my friends at the Department of Transportation that they can use some of their road transportation dollars to do offsite things like avoid, mitigate, restore, and enhance at the ecosystem level. And so if new expressways are being proposed that clip part of the wildlife corridor, this may give us an opportunity to get some funding to fix things that were damaged at by earlier transportation projects. So this whole corridor is going to, I hope, will be a receiving basin for funding more than just transportation dollars, but for lots of other types of dollars coming into it. Okay, so we're going to keep the names. Does that answer your question? Okay. All right, so let's talk about funding. This is how things get done. It shouldn't be a strange topic in this room. You all struggle with this every day. Where's the money going to come from to do all this? So let me, if I could just kind of tee up the paradigm that I'm hoping will follow. And one of the reasons for starting this with everybody in the room together is my assumption is that the counties are going to be the engine that is driving this whole project. The counties are the ones who are going to have the legal responsibility for managing it, and they should be all the ones who benefit financially from enhanced ecotourism and visitors coming to their communities to benefit. So my assumption going in is that the counties are the driving engine here, and the TPOs are the entity that helps them move this process forward collectively. Brian, do you want to say something?
Just to add to that, with the city of Orlando and other cities in Orange County, there are distinct delineations of roles, responsibilities, and funding. So just adding an extra layer of responsibility in your statement, counties and cities. Yes.
Yeah.
When you're having trails that are being protected through public lands, but there's also a lot of private landowners now that have conservation easements. So we're going to start adding public and private landowners in the corridor who are trying to enhance and protect the overall wildlife significance of this whole corridor. And to this end, Lisa, did you say that Krista Nowak with the Florida Wildlife Corridor is still on the phone?
Yes, she's rejoined.
Could you ask Krista if she would just introduce herself and maybe ask her if she would comment just briefly at this point?
Yes, she can hear you.
Lisa, can you speak up? Would you like to say anything to the group here about this from the Wildlife Corridor Foundation's point of view?
Hi, can you all hear me? This is Kristen Nowak, the Conservation Manager at the Florida Wildlife Corridor Foundation.
You're loud and clear, Krista. Thank you.
Okay, great. I'm on the road today heading to a workshop. So, we're in big support of this project. I wish I could be there in person today. Apologize that I can't. Dale, thank you for mentioning that we have a workshop coming up first quarter next year, might be in March. But yeah, I appreciate you mentioning that. And just, yeah, we're supporters of this project. Great ecotourism to the Florida Wildlife Corridor. And I appreciate hearing all the counties incorporating Florida Wildlife Corridor into their conversations. So thank you.
You're welcome. We asked everybody to think about this as part of their project. Do you have any dates for your quarterly conference up here?
Yeah, I think it might be either the first week of March or it might be pushed out to May.
Okay. Well, this facility that MetroPlan has made available to us is an excellent facility if you're looking for space.
Oh, that's wonderful. We will definitely be looking for space.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you.
Thanks, Dale.
Yeah, sure. So on the funding side, the first part of this workshop was to try to get us all on the same page so that when we approach the Office of Greenways and Trails and DEP, we have a unified plan and a unified vision of how all this is going to come together and work. And we can better answer their questions about how are the trails going to impact all of this, okay? So this is first part under Metro Plan's leadership is to get us to the point where we're actually receiving money and building this thing. But as you all know, that's just the beginning of the problem or the opportunity. We have asked DOT and from the very start of this to follow the guidelines set forth in Senate Bill 106 is that this be considered a complete trail or an entire trail. We don't want to build this in segments so that we get a piece here and a piece there. We want to try to continue to expand and grow what we've got. And so, Rick, we hope that your efforts will continue to work at this. I hope the money is available to help you to complete this. But let's look very carefully at Orange County, how you begin to position your money to get from the Seminole County line to the 528. Okay, because that's going to be the next big heavily used portion, and then into Tavistock and then in the Osceola County. We need to tee this up as we go down the line on all this. And so they're saying, yes, we understand this is how we hope that we can do this project. And the easier we make it for them to do that, the easier the money is going to come to the project. All right. So let's now move into the second part of this conversation was, okay, in 10 years, it's there. Thanks to everyone in this room pulling together. 10 years from now, that would be 2030. Let's give ourselves a year, 2036, the ribbon cutting on the final section is done and the trail is open. Now the real work begins because we're going to have to start doing all kinds of things and anticipating them. So one of the next things that we're going to ask as we get together is trailhead locations. Too often that's the last thing that's thought about and nobody has a place to go to start these trail experiences. Seminole County, I'm going to put you on the spot since you know so much about this. The guidelines that I'm seeing across the nation is there should be a major trailhead every average 10 miles. It could be 13 miles, it can be 7 miles, but on average, every 10 miles. And a major trailhead facility is one where there's parking adequate for people to leave cars, maybe for a couple of days. Okay, so we're talking 20 to 30 here with bathrooms and signage. And we hope that each county at their trailhead will pave a pad for a recreational vehicle because so many of these trails now are being oversight on the trailheads and on the trails are from people who are bringing their RVs down and saying, we'd like to volunteer our time to keep your bathrooms clean and keep the trailhead safe and answer questions for visitors. Oh, and by the way, we'd like to put our RV on that slab and be here 24 hours a day. That is turning out to be an extremely successful formula everywhere that it's been adopted. So on your major trailheads, think about not only the users coming to use the trail, but someone being on site in their own mobile home occupying that facility, okay? So every average 10 miles. In your case, we're talking about downtown waterfront. And I was talking to Robert about, Fort Mellon Park right there. There's bathrooms there already. Pretty good place for a trailhead. Doesn't tie up the downtown parking spaces, puts it on. Think about that, okay? The next one may very well be the Geneva, the Yarborough Center. Okay, the next one after that is probably going to be Lake Mill, something like that. Cedric, where's the next trailhead going to be for you guys coming into this whole thing? Is it going to be in Buffalo? What about that? Orange County, City of Orlando, working with Tavistock. I've asked Clint Beatty and his team to start trying to identify those trailheads following the same matrix, okay? Minor trailheads generally are in between major trailheads. So every 5 miles, a much less demanding facility, maybe porta potties and enough parking for 10. Those will be used mostly by your local residents who want to come there and ride a section of trail and go home. So trailheads are the next thing we're asking you all to think about. And the next time we get together, we're going to ask you to come up with some recommendations for some preliminary areas where trailheads might be located. Because then again, we're going to go to the facilities. Is there space to put them there and all that kind of stuff. The other thing that we're going to do is ask you all to help us develop a logo and a color palette for this, because we've seen other regional trails that have done this and the public loves it. They're saying, I'm going to go ride the red trail. And everybody knows that the red trail is the lake to lake or whatever it is. The logo for the coast to coast connector was developed by volunteers and given to the project to use, and they used it. It's been adopted everywhere. That was the logo that we came up. So we're going to challenge everybody around this room. This is to bring out your creative side. Before the next meeting, we'd love you to bring and send in some ideas for logos for the Lake to Lake Trail and what's your favorite color palette. And by way of this, I'm going to introduce this next part of the program, because at the core of all of what we're going to be talking about in the second phase of operating and management, we have seen that the best way to do this is to bring in a not-for-profit entity that can work collegially across county lines on the regional project, and also bring private philanthropic dollars in to help with the development of some of these facilities. And people love naming rights. It's much easier if it's a privately built facility that already has the naming rights before it's turned over to the county to maybe operate in the long term, something like that. So to that end, wanted you to know that there is a vision for a long-term alliance of the counties and the not-for-profits and the for-profit sector to be able to raise additional money and bring to this. So we're going to call that, for an operating term, the Lake to Lake Regional Trail Alliance. It doesn't exist. It's somewhere out in the future, somewhere in the period of time before the trail is completed, done. But to bridge that gap and get to that future, we have reached out to a partner NGO here locally that has expressed a great deal of interest in helping us keep this collaboration going. And to that end, I'd like to introduce Patrick Panza with the Bike Walk Central Florida, a group that many of you may know. And as Patrick, to introduce yourself and Bike Walk and talk a little bit about your role going forward as that leader in the collaboration. This is post-construction. Before construction, I'm sorry, but then post.
Pre and post, different messages there. Yes. So again, I'm Patrick Panza. I am the operations director of Bike Walk Central Florida and the company's vice president. I know a lot of you are very familiar with our organization and a lot of the different programs and services that we offer to our community members, but also to our regional and local governments and agencies as well. So I won't really jump too far into that. But I do want to kind of talk a little bit about Dale's vision here for this Lake to Lake Regional Trail Alliance and some of the opportunities that we collectively believe are presented to this group and our future collaboration, both pre and post construction, right? So pre-construction, I just want to talk a little bit about what Dale led into there, is that this collaborative effort, of course, being an incredibly important part of its eventual success. There are a lot of aspects for everyone to be concerned about here. But as you all know, sustaining a collaborative effort like that takes quite a bit of effort. It takes quite a bit of commitment. It takes quite a bit of facilitation. So we're here right now experiencing the first step of that, and that's that commitment and dedication that MetroPlan has provided to the effort to have us all in the room here today. Continuing that plan, you have to admit that no one party can really be everything for everyone, right? So moving forward, I think a lot of it is about identifying the proper roles and responsibilities for any of the parties that are here today or not here today, and appropriately designating how we are going to move together as a team and succeed. So I'll speak a little bit about some of the experience that we have as an organization facilitating such an effort. And I'll speak about an ongoing current effort right now that's happening in West Orange County. I like to use it as an example of the type of model in practice that we should maybe potentially consider moving forward. This effort's called the Healthy West Orange Trails Connection. It is essentially a coalition of towns and cities, 5 towns and cities in West Orange County. That's Gotha, Winter Garden, Windermere, Oakland, and Ocoee. Thank you very much. And then a number of supporting agencies and partners as well, including FDOT, private sector consultants, Orange County, et cetera. This came together as a vision under the umbrella of improving public health. And the recognition and admission that trails can be a very important part of doing so. Right. So fast forward 5 years from the initial conversations that really kind of led to that. And what we have is this coalition of people who see a vision for improving public health through the development and activation of the trail system in West Orange County. And they believe in that vision, and they put resources toward collaboration in moving forward toward that vision. I see the opportunity that we have here today, moving forward with all of the groundwork that's already been done that we have to be very thankful for, to follow the same model, to continue and collaboratively identify the opportunities to not only build the trail, but to make the trail a success for its communities. So that's when you bring in the additional conversations like Dale is leading into about trailheads, for example. How do you properly promote and activate this trail system to where it does really achieve that vision of being a true resource to the communities that it is going through, right? And it can be a resource to those communities in terms of recreation, public health. It can be an economic development resource. There are any number of different facets to that conversation. So I think that's really the opportunity that we have, is to have that side-by-side sort of process going on. There's going to be a lot of you that are really zoomed in and focused on how do we get this funded? How do we get this constructed? There needs to be a concerted effort running parallel into how do we make sure that this is maximized in terms of its opportunity and its resources. So just kind of leave off right there.
That's it. And I want to thank you so much. Bike Walk, when we first approached them, notified me that they had already written this endeavor into their 5-year strategic plan, and that their board of directors had approved them becoming an active participant in this. So they were willing and eager to participate. Now, their role initially will be with time, because my wife Karen and I live in Tallahassee, and we can only get down here occasionally to be part of these meetings, is that Patrick and Bike Walk will take over this NGO leadership role to convene these meetings with Metro Plan, help gather the information, and be constantly alert for philanthropic opportunities to bring additional money to this process. Okay. Case in point, working with Brevard County on how to connect to all this thing. We approached the Space Growth Health Foundation, and they provided a lead grant to help us create a vision map similar to what's happening in West Orange County here, to assist the Space Coast TPO think about an even more robust way of making their system interactive at the regional level with the counties around them. So that they received the gift from the Space Coast Health Foundation. They're the managers of that gift. They will develop the plans, the maps, and all that in collaboration, and give them to the counties to help them facilitate the work that they're already doing. So we see more of that coming in the future. We're already being approached by some of the health foundations who are aware of this effort and saying, how can we help? And that early cultivation of private sector philanthropy happens at the beginning. You can't wait till the project is done and say, oh, by the way, come on, get on board. They've got to be there initially, and they've got to feel like they're contributing and playing a part in all this. And to do that, we need a non-governmental entity to carry that lead, and it's been Bike Walk. So I'm going to stop for just a second. I know this is a new concept, but it's a concept that we found is at the core of every successful regional trail in the United States. If they don't have this, they founder, they go their separate ways, And pretty soon it doesn't work anymore. So I want the government people around here to be especially aware of this, because this is not something you see all the time. If you've got any questions for Patrick or for me on this issue of the collaboration under Bike Walk's leadership, and maybe if the need is there for a separate alliance in the future, we don't know yet. That's a possibility. We'll see. But for now, the collaboration with Bike Walk, this would be a good time to ask a question of Patrick or me about what this all means.
Dale or Patrick, can you maybe expand on how your role on this and Metro Plans and how that works together, or is there's division of responsibilities? Clarify that a little bit.
Sure. The way I think we see it now is that Metro Plan, in cooperation with Bike Walk Central Florida, is kind of the lead to get this on all the comprehensive plans, to get it on all the maps, to inform the public, to make this a public endeavor, and to all the way until it's built. At that point, Metro Plan will have really no formal role in this, except they're going to be interested to see how this works as part of their multimodal future. Okay, this is a new corridor that we're developing, much like the high-speed rail corridors and things. It's probably in their future as well, but their active role will be ending with construction. Is that how you see it too?
Yeah.
Okay. After that, the either Bike Walk or the Alliance would then work in partnership, maybe holding annual meetings or biannual meetings with all the players. What do you need? Well, Osceola County is having trouble keeping the bottom 20 miles of their corridor open. We need some volunteers to go in there. We need equipment. We see a lot of equipment sharing along these corridors between the urban and the rural counties, operated by volunteers working through an intermediary. We've also encountered where one of the first groups that always calls us up and said, hey, I just understand you've got a 25-mile trail down there. We'd like to bring our annual fundraising marathon to your area. And the counties go, oh, but that's in 2 counties. We can't possibly do that. They'll say, okay, the organizing entity that you're going to be working with is going to be Bike Walk or the Alliance. They can receive money from these groups. They can receive sponsorship arrangements from these groups, with the idea being that all of that money would be reinvested in the project over time. Now, I want to say one other thing. Senate Bill 106. This was a very unique bill. It actually created new statutory language that is in there creating sponsorship agreements. It allows the counties or DOT to enter into contracts with third parties, either private businesses or not-for-profits, to raise money around sponsorship agreements and keep those funds invested in the trail. Okay, so it's the first time we've had a capture mechanism for monies that may be generated. Now, case in point, we've seen this happen in other states. Everybody struggles with signs. You know, how to build them, how to afford them, how to replace them when the next hurricane takes them all away. Okay. This company comes in and will sign a contract to build and maintain the signs. And all they want is the bottom 10% of the signs so they can put their sponsor's name on it. Dasani Water. End of story. In the not-for-profit world, this is called soft advertising. You see NPR does it all the time. These are the companies or foundations that have given us money. It's all public. We have to disclose, but those monies can be captured through these sponsorship agreements with DOT and reinvested for amenities. And it says that in the statutory language. Now, Gary, you were at the meeting on Monday with the central office with Secretary Tyler, and we brought this up, and it was like, oh, this is new. This is real new. We're not sure exactly how to do this, but their first take on it was, boy, we'd really like the counties to lead this. And my first take on it is, boy, I would too. So this is part of what's coming over the next couple of years as we get deeper and deeper into this. But it's the core from the very beginning that there is going to be an NGO working in collaboration during the construction phase, and hopefully a permanent NGO that will carry this project forward indefinitely. Okay, assisting the counties in the operation and management, not bearing the full responsibility. They couldn't, but assisting the counties, especially the rural counties that may have resource issues and constraints. Good question. Thank you. Any other questions?
If I could add just a little bit to the conversation there, I think, you know, you're mentioning counties and cities and things. I also want to make sure that we also include that conversation in our regional planning organizations as well.
I'm sorry.
Such as, no, it's okay. Yep, just, but, you know, the regional vision and the regional capacity at that point, I think is also very important. But I also want to bring into the conversation an existing example of some, maybe not the specific approach and methodology, but some of the yielded results. When you look at our coast to coast trail, we have sort of an annual meeting, coast to coast trail alliance and things like that. And some of the things that come out of that are directly intended to work on some of those post-construction items, the branding, creating a unified presentation of the trail and its opportunities. There's a map out there now. There's a web map out there now where you can view the coast to coast trail collectively, and its camping opportunities, et cetera, and you can kind of plan your trips and things like that. Some of those can get lost in the shuffle if it's left to, because you are cross jurisdictional at that part. And it's like, well, who takes responsibility for that? It can't be one county doing it for everyone.
Right.
You might not be able to reliably count on a state organization, for example, to do that. So that's part of the benefit that Dale is pointing to, of having a specified organization or some sort of construct for a lot of those efforts to live in, right?
Can I? Yeah, actually, that was a great segue because I had just written down stuff for the coast to coast, because at Dale's, one of our meetings for the coast to coast, he said, we have no branding. We have no designs for signage or consistency for what the trails could look like across the whole coast to coast. So the Regional Planning Council received funding from the state of Florida in order to do just that, right? So at that time we had a logo, but we made some tweaks to it. But then we developed the signage that could be utilized across the corridor. I know what Volusia did from that was they got approved by DOT for all different types of signage that then any entity along the corridor could use, and they didn't need to go through that process. So, and then some marketing stuff and the trail map was developed. So I was just writing down that maybe next year or the year after, we could partner with you all, try and see if the state of Florida would give us funding to do something very similar again, if that's what you all decide. So it's ready to go as you're starting the construction and ready to put in signage and whatnot.
If this is the Department of Commerce.
Yes.
Grants, would be great for something like that.
Yeah.
Yes.
To jump off of what Tara said is, you know, our major trail is obviously coast to coast, but that same trail has the local name of the East Central Regional Rail Trail, as well as also it's part of the St. John's River to Sea Loop and the East Coast Greenway. And so we took what Tara did and also what Volusia had done and made a North Brevard wayfinding and trail map or trail master plan. And so we found ways to make all of those logos work together. This ended right as COVID hit, so it hasn't been wildly successful in implementation, but it's a really great guidebook of considering all those different color schemes and making sure that it's aesthetically pleasing. And also, you know, kind of to everyone's point, is a trail user doesn't know or care that they crossed, you know, from Orange County into Orlando, you know, into Osceolas. They want a seamless experience.
That's right. And while each county is expected to make their trail the best part of the lake to lake, so we're expecting each county to compete with each other to be the best section. Okay, someone has got to market the entire corridor so we don't steal people from each other. Okay, and this is the role of that group. Okay. And other questions on this? Okay, so there is going to be, we're entering today's the first meeting of that collaboration. In the resolutions that the counties have passed, and I hope the cities will pass, there is language that says we are committed to work in partnership to make this a priority trail for the state of Florida and to work in partnership to operate and manage this trail together and this collaboration. I just wanted to make sure everybody was aware of that. It was in the resolution, and we're now fulfilling that part of the commitment going forward. All right. Okay, so that brings me back to the logo.
Yeah.
Yes, we have a question down here. Clinton? Yes.
It might be out of sequence, but what is the timeline? Like, what, okay, we're all working together, we've got bike walk, okay. So what are we doing next month? What are we doing first quarter next, like, is there a timeline of any kind? Is there a homework for all of us to go home aside from, like, I don't want this to be a meeting that we all get up and go, that was really enjoyable, this is gonna be great, but we don't have a call to action?
Yeah. The timeline has been. And to FDEP for inclusion. Okay. But then in the meantime, trailheads are going to be looked at, side trail connections to other places. These are all going to be coming into this, as well as discussions at the wildlife corridor, which then takes me back to the infographic. Okay, we're going to be looking at all of this simultaneously, and this is becoming a little bit of a stretch for the transportation planning agencies who've never really had to deal with the wildlife corridor components of this before, but they're clearly spelled out in Senate Bill 106. They're asking for each of the regional planning councils to come forward and do this. And so we're making them aware, this is the trial balloon on all that. So that's going to happen. Well, hopefully there will be a meeting in spring from the wildlife corridor to add to the land protection strategy that surrounds all this, and to take a closer look at tunnels, bridges, and other structures that need to be incorporated and to be baked into these long-range plans. That'll probably be sometime this spring. And meanwhile, the legislature is going to be in session, and they're obviously going to be looking at this. In June 30th of 2026, which is next year, the Senate Bill 106 calls out for the FDOT Central Office to prepare a report on the progress of all this trail construction all over the state of Florida. Users, how many miles done, what's needed, what's working, what isn't, all that's going to be as part of FDOT's report to the legislature on June 30th. It's going to be a major thing, and I hope that we're all going to be looking at that and commenting on it and making suggestions for how to improve this better, okay? So right now we know that there's commentary going on. One of the big restrictions that Volusia County has bumped into is they want to put a paved trail through one of their conservation lands, but they can't get DOT to agree to any other surface but paved. Okay, and they are saying we've got this cellular fabric that we can have bicycles and fire trucks on. Why is it not acceptable? The bicyclist community loves it. The fire engine community loves it. Why is DOT? All those issues are starting to come up now because trails, again, on the graphic, are different than roads. They're not skinny roads. They're different. And so we're going to start figuring out all these different. My hope after that is that there'll be another fall workshop and that there's going to be an effort made to upgrade the priority list sooner than it's currently scheduled in 2028. Hopefully that would be a call to action on everybody's part. It's impossible to convene this group with all this information and all this at the last minute. So we're going to be in touch with everybody about when that next call is. And then you all get a chance, each of the counties will have a chance to have their lobbyists or their representatives working on behalf to get this project. And hopefully we're going to compete at the very top of this list for new funding. We hope that'll happen in 2026. And so that's another reason for getting the counties to start looking at where they're going to have design constraints on the trail. The more ready to go we are, I'm arguing, the more ready to go we are with specific designs in specific areas, the quicker the money is going to come to us.
And is Patrick coordinating that?
Yes, and with Gary.
Our most immediate timeline is sometime after December 10th, because December 10th is when the Metro Plan Board will adopt the new long-range plan that includes the lake-to-lake trip, that will include the lake-to-lake train. And then that gets packaged and submitted to Office of Greenways and Trails.
So it's not a month by month timeline, but it's a general work. The goal is, my personal goal is to have construction begin within 2 to 3 years. Done in 10. And generate its first $1 million of sponsorship agreements in 15. So that's it. All right.
I had a question. Like in my slides when I mentioned before the process, this might be getting a little bit ahead of here, but I've always kind of wondered here. As to say, our first thing is, of course, to get on the list. Of course, for the Greens Trails, get on the priority list, priority map. The next steps after that are like the process. I guess that's my thing.
Yes.
Is there intention to pursue like a study, alignment study, or just how exactly? But like I said, if you're going to move that quickly, 10 years, which I support, I'm about getting these things done. How would that process? How do you kind of envision that, or have we gotten that far? Am I too far ahead, Ernest?
No, you're not. I think this is why this meeting exists. Well, what we'd like to do is use the group to solve the hard problems. Okay, because one of the things that's made the regional trail and the Sun Trail program work is, prior to that, every county was going it alone. So there was no way to get the county next to you, which didn't have a trail program, to do anything because you had no influence. Once we created the regional scale corridor, now counties on both ends of that reluctant county are squawking. They say, finish your piece. Let's keep going, because it doesn't work without that. So this coalition is going to be kind of where we gather the issues that we've got to solve collectively that we cannot solve individually. All right. And I think one of those big ones is going to start being all this infrastructure that's going to evolve over existing roads. We've had some first estimates as to how many wildlife tunnels and how many land bridges do you guys really envision for this one regional trail. So I sat down and looked at the roads in the whole area. Here's the good news. On the west side of Florida, on the west side of Lake Wales Ridge, where DOT District 1 is proposing to build now what's called the Heartland Regional Trail, connecting Polk County to Collier County, there are something like 35 major east-west roads. Okay. On our side, there's 8. What an advantage we have. All right. But in those 8, we've counted now possibly as many as 20 to 30 wildlife tunnels or land bridges that are going to have to be retrofitted. They're going to have to be built into these roads the next time they're widened or something. We've got to start getting all that stuff into the long-range comprehensive plans. So hopefully at the Wildlife Corridor Foundation meeting, which will be the spring, Rick is going to bring State Road 46 in and saying, we got a critical issue here. We need to get crossings in these 3 areas. And oh, by the way, we need to also solve the problem of how do we expand capacity without building a 4-lane highway? Because the one thing I've heard when I talk to people in Titusville, have you ever tried to drive 46 at rush hour? It's bumper to bumper. You can't pass. Okay, how do we take the pressure out of the system without always going to, let's just widen? We got to start coming up with solutions like that. So all that stuff is going to, if it's Orange County all by itself, Orange County is going to be pretty much ignored.
The reason I say it, like, and that's, and I agree with that here, sis. It's as a person who, like I said, who's taken Orange County's master plan when we had like maybe 15 trails and got most of them programmed, and for like probably the middle of next decade would be done. I'm focused on that kind of how do you make it happen. My thinking is that, as I said, we're doing this initial application. Hopefully we'll be successful with that. It's the process. Like, are we doing a overall concept plan where we narrow down some things here? We move into that next phase where we kind of like, as I say, I need to feel that we're kind of where we're going in that process right here, because we have a process in Orange County. We here to here to here, we get it done. And I think we need to be more specific on that kind of thing, kind of what we're doing here. I think whether we're going to be concept plan first, initially, that's what we're kind of around, or, and then we'll move to like either a more study, or we're going to go to design, or just, I need to know more of how that's.
All right,
we're planning on having to do
again, we're all inventing this, Cedric, so be patient with us a little bit, but if you listen to the webinar yesterday from District 1 DOT on now what they're calling the Heartland Regional Trail, they spent $500,000, DOT funded it, $500,000 to create a master plan for the whole corridor. Do we need that?
Well, therein lies, and that's one of the reasons why I brought this up, because we're with our MPO right now. In the past, let's just say on our West Orange Trail project, when we wanted to, which one's phase 4 project, when we said, hey, we want to move on these projects, they're kind of next on the priority list. We actually asked and kind of that what Metro Plan actually lead and actually do a corridor study. And graciously, they actually did so. Is that a similar thing that could potentially happen here? Is that something the MPO maybe could fund, is the actual corridor study that actually allows, us to move forward there? So that's something that might be possible.
Well, a lot of work has gone into this. I listened to yesterday's webinar on
Heartland.
the Heartland Trail. I wanted to call it the Polk to Color.
I know, me too.
I still have
I have to pause.
But they did a $500,000 master plan. And I think there's been a lot of work done on this project already. But they are about to enter into 6 PD&Es for that. And we heard also while we were in Tallahassee on Monday of DOT's position now about once you do a PD&E, you need to be ready. You need to be ready to go. I think that they mentioned an 8-year timeframe that they're not approving PD&Es, but District 1 got SunTrail funds. I mean, SunTrail money is funding those 6 PD&Es in their region. And so again, our first thing that we want to do is get on the map and get some funding. But then is it a matter of doing 1 PD&E? Do we do 3 PD&Es?
Well, I've kind of been gaming this out here in a way here. Say, get a list. That's the key thing here. You're going to spend most of the next year here, and hopefully they will approve you before 2028 for the usual cycle. Yep. That'd be great. You're then eligible for that money. Then you go to them, and FDOT will fund studies. They will do corridor feasibility studies right here. You approach them at that time, but you need to do a overall study that will nail down most of these issues right here, kind of thing at that time right here. That helps counties that might not have as much funds as Orange County or wherever, like that. And then that sets you up right here with them, for them to start looking at your projects, whether they phase them or not, or hey, well, we'll put them in design for this year, this segment here, and then so forth in the construction. I guess that's where I'm trying to get us to push here. Is like I think we need to go ahead and give people an idea of how this is going to move forward on that front. And I think get an application in, get on the list, and then we're going to go into a study phase right here, and we're going to pursue perhaps a SunTrail funding to do that right here. That gives people a sense of kind of where we're moving forward here and how we can actually make that your 10-year timeline here to kind of get that done.
Well, Cedric, you're going to be pleased to know that on the board of Metro Plan are a lot of very vocal commissioners who support this project and are going to be looking to Metro Plan to begin to address these issues. Okay. My personal recommendation is that if there is money that we can find to do PD&Es, they should be at the intersections, because those are the real thorns. Those are the really tough ones. If we can't solve that intersection problem, we may not want that alignment. All right. So, and let SunTrails come in, not paying for PD&Es, but paying for the actual construction.
Might not necessarily need to go to the level of PD&E, however, though. Like many times our study report, so it's like
this is outside my paper.
Yeah, like John said, PDVs can be very involved and very that you don't necessarily go to that level right here to get to the specificity I think we need to move into design right here.
I was gonna make that point that not every, a lot of trails don't require a PD&E.
Yes.
I'm actually shocked that there's 6 of them happening down there, because you can usually just do it on a feasibility study, which
exactly. I
mean, I just did a feasibility study for less than 300,000 with SunTrails money.
Yep.
So I think that there's definitely, and I also have to say that the only reason that the project got funded is because at the end of the year, it was current year money and not last year. And basically they had just a tiny little bit of money that wasn't able to be put on a construction project or a big design or anything. And so they were looking for one of those low hanging fruits. And so that's how it got funded. But I do love your idea of doing a master plan.
Yes. And I think that's the way you do it, because what you identify all these different issues, whether it's drainage or you deal with the intersection, you deal with all of that comprehensively. And then you can then come up with your segments and say, okay, we're gonna do the segment from Lake Monroe to here to Georgia. However, you can then program, and it allows them to program the projects better.
And you're engaging the citizens and the public earlier, because you don't want, I mean, we've seen it with quite a few projects, and especially trail projects over the last 5 years, that citizens have come in, you know, when they're at 90% plans and really been upset. And like we funded a trail system in Melbourne, and the city had to completely redo their 60%. Luckily they got it at 60, but it completely changed the project because they didn't do that public engagement early and often.
Exactly. You do that public engagement and also engagement of the political leadership, because whether we like it or not, political leadership will be involved.
Well,
and
remember,
be on board.
and we're making it even more complicated because of that graphic. Okay. You know, that graphic is going to be there every time you think about this. This isn't just a trail. All right. Anyone else want to comment on this topic? This is a key one. This is about how we get started. Patrick?
A full disclosure, Cedric and I have had this conversation before, okay? And I want to give full credit to Cedric for his persistence in bringing that conversation to light, because we had that conversation when it comes to what we were doing with the Healthy West Orange Trails Committee in West Orange County. There was a recommendation that Cedric made in one of our working group meetings, and we diligently followed it up and had that conversation with the voting members. And where we are at now is we are going to use some money from the Foundation for a Healthier West Orange to fund exactly that sort of, where we're in RFP development right now. We're looking at a 15% feasibility, 15% design feasibility study. So stopping short of PD&E, but identifying some of those doing some of the identification of some of your environmental concerns, your drainage concerns, et cetera, et cetera. We've had these discussions with the towns and cities out there, and they said that would be such a phenomenal help. Because it takes a huge load off of their backs in terms of, okay, we're looking at this as a vision, we're presenting it as a vision, and then it kind of takes off some of that initial groundwork off of their backs, and it can be very helpful for them. So I do want to credit Cedric with that idea generation in this context, and we're putting it into action, albeit at a much smaller phase.
So let me make a proposal here for Gary's consideration. Gary, would it be helpful if counties would begin to identify some of these needs that they're already experiencing and send them in to you?
Well, yeah, that'd be helpful. But again, our charge first is to get it. I mean, we're not going to spend any of our federal dollars that you know are meant for off-system improvements and other studies. We're not going to spend any of that money or suggest to our partners that they spend that money until this gets on the map.
Right. Which is that's the thing. The key thing here is always this getting on the list. Or, you know, but after we've done the things that need to do to get on that list, we need to know where we're going next. And the next thing is that study and getting that thing doing and getting that going here. And that moves you along. That also shows SunTrail, the people in, you know, District 5 and Tallahassee, that you're serious about this. You're serious about getting this done. They will start looking at programming this project right here, kind of thing, and those different things.
We might have to appoint Cedric to be the committee chair on that one.
Again, that comes, we take a lot of direction from our committees on what projects to put funds on. So we're here to help. We're not here to, Dale was talking about us taking the lead in things, but we're really just the convener. I mean, the direction that we take on how that money is spent comes in a large part from our partners, from the 3 counties.
Yes. In this case here, you're dealing with and it's, of course, I'm on a lot of those committees, so I'm like one of those people, and I think the counties and the jurisdictions would be pushing in that way. With SunTrail, I believe, if I'm not mistaken here, it's a little bit different. I don't know if y'all have as much, and this, you can correct me on this here, say on that, it might be something that's more Tallahassee driven or something here, I'm not sure, as far as what they prioritize right here, you know. in that way here.
Well,
Maybe you can explain that more, like, no.
Yeah, we're gonna be learning a lot of this as we go, because this is all new stuff, but I certainly think ongoing conversations with District 5 Secretary are gonna be important in all this. They want to do this. All right, it's getting to 1. We need to wrap it up. I'd like to call upon anybody who has any last kind of thoughts. Was this a helpful meeting? We'd like to do this once or twice a year, virtual, one face-to-face. But I think there's so much to be gained by this interaction at the face-to-face level that we'll probably come back and do another one of these, maybe after the wildlife quarter, maybe later this spring. Rick?
And first off, yes, absolutely. This is extremely helpful. What would be even more helpful heading forward is, could we get a list of all the contact information of everybody here? Because I've already gone, well, I gotta intercept everybody at the door and start handing out business cards, but it would be great to get a roster of everybody who was here today with their contact information.
We'll provide that to the list, yeah.
Fantastic.
And then also Dale or Patrick, or one of y'all, could one of y'all, or is there somebody that can build a schedule, kind of like, this is what the next step is and this is what's coming next?
I'll do that.
It'll be real helpful for me to be able to take back to the county to say, this is the direction we're going, this is the next step.
Yes.
Especially with everything Cedric. just
Yes,
got this back.
and Patrick and I will agree at some time to come down and maybe speak to the commission directly if that's a need.
Yeah, that'd be fantastic.
Okay.
Still on the call who could answer the question about DEP's role in prioritizing Sun Trail funding?
Gary talked to her already.
okay.
Do you want to speak to that?
Virginia and I had a conversation with her just shortly after the last meeting the board meeting in Sanford, about what she needed to have to get this on the opportunities map. And, the resolutions are a good thing. Having each of the 3 counties agreeing on the corridor, the concept, is a good thing. Having it on our map is a good thing. We hope to have all that done by the end of this year. And she was very encouraging to us to apply for the priorities map. I mean, to kind of go straight to it. Now, we need to have a follow-up conversation with her on that. But she did indicate to us that regardless of which map we request, it's going to happen at the same time, whether we get on the opportunities or the priority map.
Right. And the next reprioritization is set for the 2028, but it could happen sooner.
Yeah.
I just remember sitting on the council, Florida Greenway and Trails Council, and listen to all the presentations. So there's a lot of competition for those trails, for that trail money. So just.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we're hoping to tighten up the criteria on which people vote at the council meeting, from fuzzy to specific. And that'll be in the process too.
Great.
All right. Anyone else? Tim, you've hung with us the whole day from Bithlo. Any thoughts?
No, I just appreciate your leadership. I'm fighting bureaucracy all the time in the work that I do, and it's been one of those positive meetings I've been to lately on how everybody's in favor of doing something really proactively. Thanks.
Well, it's because the idea is very popular among the people right now. Daphne, anything for you?
Just agree on that concept. It's good to be on a discussion and talk about a project that we can all agree on and can agree on the mutual benefits that it will bring about. I have a question for the logo conversation. So are we thinking of a logo that will be kind of all encompassing for the Lake to Lake Trail, or something
Yeah,
specific for our own segments, like
the whole thing.
to Orlando?
Yeah.
Okay.
And we're asking, I'm serious about this. We're asking each one to send this in, and I'd like a copy to go to Gary and a copy to go to Patrick. So what I'm going to ask Bike Walk to do is if we get 10 different great ideas, they're going to sort through and pick the best 3. And then MetroPlan is going to bring it back to the group to vote on which logo they want. So we're going to put you to work right away in getting a logo and a color scheme and all that. You'll be surprised how unifying that logo is. It really helps pull you together on the one page. Anyone from this side? Georgette, thank you for coming today. Do you want to comment? Yeah. Sarah, thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Good practical information. Clint? All good? All right, Gary, it's yours. You want to wrap it up?
I'm good. Just thank everybody for participating and for taking the time to be here.
And thank you for the lunch.
Yeah. You're welcome.
Thanks for coming, folks. 10 years. ribbon cutting.